all lies. You know, big lie about the January 6th being a false flag operation, a big lie about COVID being a false flag operation, a big lie about the Ukrainians being Nazis, a big lie. I mean, it just goes on and on. Just listen to this. This is incredible.
If I was the deep state and I wanted to destroy America, I would rig the election with a puppet candidate.
That's Joe Biden they're talking about there, right?
One that was so compromised that they would never say a word about it. I would create a false flag that allows for mail-in ballots.
Right, the false flag being the COVID emergency.
I would be in charge of the ballot counting machines. I would create a false flag to blame all who question the results of the election.
That would be the video that they're showing of that is of the Capitol riot on January 6th.
If I was the deep state, I would prosecute anyone that went against me.
Right, this is now Jack Smith, right?
I would sue and prosecute anyone that spoke up about the fraudulent election.
Yeah.
I would use my powers to shut down all your internet businesses and bankrupt you.
Yeah, this is you know, people who are selling ivermectin online and stuff like that.
If I was the deep state, I would make everyone an example why you should never question a Democrat ever winning an election. I would imprison my foes.
Yeah, this is a picture of Donald Trump as he's being arraigned in New York State for business fraud.
I would use my corrupt DAs and blackmail judges to destroy you.
This is and then there was a picture of Alvin Bragg and Fonnie Willis and Jack Smith.
I would make sure all crimes I ever committed never happened. I was the deep state. I would convince everyone that Ukraine Nazis were good and women are men.
Right. You know, attacking trans people and saying that Ukraine is full of Nazis. Right.
If I was the deep state, I would own every politician that mattered. If I was the deep state, I would push my pedophilia ambitions on you. If I was the deep state, you'd question your sexual identity, but not the medical establishment.
There's a picture of Anthony Fauci, and they had just shown some drag queens a moment before when they were talking about pedophilia, which is, you know, again, just, you know, one of the sickest lies out there.
If I was the deep state, you would fear to ever resist me. If I was the deep state, you would wish I was really the devil. If I was the deep state, I would say mission accomplished.
And then it goes to, you know, the logo, and it says Trump, Make America Great Again 2024. I mean, this is friggin' nuts. But this is, you know, a classic big lie. It's actually a sequential big lie. This is a classic big lie strategy. As, like I said, you know, as Hitler's propagandists did with his invasion of Poland and with his attacks on Jews, these guys are pushing nakedly fascist policies, tropes, and memes. And frankly, I think that where this started in a big way, I mean, you know, we had some big lies back in the day, right? Nixon's war on drugs was actually, as John Ehrlichman told Dan Bloom, the reporter, was actually an attempt to go after the anti-war hippies and black people. He said they are our enemies, but you can't outlaw that, so we criminalized drugs. And then we could, disrupt their communities. That was pretty much a verbatim quote from Ehrlichman. And, you know, we've had, and then, you know, George Herbert Walker Bush and the Willie Horton ad was arguably a big lie. But now, but then George W. Bush, and this is where I think this started. I think this is when the Republican Party, well, again, you could argue that the trickle-down economics was a big lie too. You know, Reaganism, and that if we ship our jobs to China, it'll increase prosperity. That was a big lie. But those were like smaller versions of big lies, and maybe just arguably bad economics. But in 2001. And 2002, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney lied us into 2 illegal wars that led to the death of thousands of Americans and millions of Iraqis and Afghan citizens. And they never suffered any consequence for those big lies. Both of these guys are still walking around loose. They're both still highly regarded in the Republican Party. They're both still multi-millionaires, 100 millionaires. You know, richer than you'll ever imagine being. And so I think the GOP looked at that and said, hey, you know, if Bush and Cheney can get away with this, we can get away with this. Excuse me. And this is what's happening right now. We're seeing the shape of this. I mean, Lee Atwater on his deathbed said, and I quote, "In 1988, fighting Dukakis, I said I would strip the bark off that little bastard and make Willie Horton his running mate. He said, I'm sorry for both statements. The first for its naked cruelty, the second because it makes me sound racist, which I am not. Mostly I'm sorry for the way I thought of other people. Like a good general, I treated everyone who wasn't with me as against me." And I mean, you know, this is Atwater's strategies continuing, but being amped up, I mean, hugely. And the frightening thing, the sad thing, the frankly for America, the potentially disastrous thing is, you know, as we saw in Hitler's Germany, the big lie over the short term works. It's very, very hard to challenge a big lie. A simple black and white lie that is told over and over and over, repeated over and over and over again until literally millions of Americans believe it. More than half of Republicans right now believe January 6th was not a big deal. More than half of Republicans right now believe the election was stolen from Donald Trump. You know, more than half of Republicans right now are skeptical about the COVID vaccine, you know, which is going to lead to more and more deaths in the United States, where, you know, we just found out again last week, another report last week, that, you know, in Republican counties, you saw twice as many deaths from COVID as in Democratic counties all across the United States. A big lie. A big lie, by the way, that, you know, Ron DeSantis is still promulgating. I mean, Elon Musk, for God's sake, on X now it's called, talking about LeBron James's son collapsing from, apparently he's got a heart arrhythmia. And he says, oh, you know, was this the vaccine? No. You know, come on. And it actually had, for a while, it had a, you know, we're not sure this is true. Now it's like, you know, Elon presenting it as fact. These big lies are really, really destructive. And I don't have any easy answer about how to challenge them. The Germans didn't know how to challenge them. The German, you know, opposition political.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Hey, it's $5 Friday, or $15 Friday, or $50 Friday, or $500 Friday. Well, no. I'm getting out over my skis here. This is the day, you know, and we occasionally do this here, you know, on Free Speech TV. This is the day when we ask you to consider becoming a regular sustaining member of Free Speech TV. You know, in the normal pledge drives, it's like, hey, you know, please call now, and if you give $100, you can get my new book and stuff like that. This is a different thing. Free Speech TV is, you know, a great network, and you know, imagine trying to run a business and not knowing how much money is going to come in, having, you know, unpredictable revenue. It's a challenge. And so what we're trying to do is get as many people as possible, you know, to sign up and say, yes, please, you know, charge my credit card $5 a month or $15 a month or $50 a month, I mean, whatever you can afford, whatever's comfortable and convenient for you. And out of that, Free Speech TV now builds a base, a predictable base of support. As a Free Speech TV sustaining member, you'll also get some added perks, like a year-end gift, special invites to events throughout the year, and more. Just this week, Free Speech TV hosted a special event for monthly donors with the filmmaker and producer of Free Speech TV's newest documentary, Powerlands. They had a wonderful time, and hopefully you can join next time. It's a marvelous thing. By the way, Free Speech has, you know, I mentioned when we're doing the pledge drives, the large gifts that you get premiums for, right? The $20 gifts, the $50 gifts, the $100 gifts. And Free Speech TV has basically a room full of old gifts. And not old in a bad way. I mean, some of them are just really special things. A lot of them are, you know, books and caps and mugs and just, we've had some really fascinating premiums, I think is what they're called, over the years. And so if you sign up today for $5 Friday here, for $5 or whatever amount you would like to give on a monthly basis, if you sign up to become a member of the sustaining donor community, somebody from Free Speech TV is going to go into that back room with a box, and they're going to find something and stick it in that box, and you're going to get a surprise in the mail. And I have no idea what it will be, and neither will you until you open the box. But you know, it's 27 years of Free Speech TV. There's a lot of good stuff in there, old shows, just all kinds of cool stuff. And by the way, if you're already a sustaining donor, first off, thank you very much for that. But if you would like today's mystery box, if you increase your sustaining donation by $5 or more today, then you'll also get a special mystery gift. So, you know, here's your opportunity. Free Speech TV is just such a special place. You know, I've got to tell you, it is such an honor to be on this network. I remember when John Schwartz, who used to be on the board of Free Speech TV, maybe still is, I don't think he is, came to visit me here in Portland back more than 15 years ago, maybe 16 years ago. And I was doing the show, and we were talking about something unrelated. He had a foundation that he wanted me to be on the board of, which I am now on the board of. You know, he said, have you ever thought of putting a camera in the studio? And at that time, Free Speech TV was mostly running documentaries. The only live show that they had was Democracy Now! And I was like, yeah, that would be interesting. And so we got one of these little webcams on a stand, and we set it on the opposite other end of my table where I was doing the show from. And that's how it all started. You know, all of this live programming you see on Free Speech TV. It started out with me talking into that little tiny camera. And then later on, we got bigger cameras, and we got a video switching board, and we got lights, and other shows started putting cameras in their on, and Free Speech TV. I think the next show that they picked up was Stephanie Miller's show. We share an agent. So anyhow, it's grown organically, and it's grown because we get good feedback from you. You know, from people who watch this program and say, yeah, I like that. I want more of that. You know, please don't have that program go away. You know, we want this kind of program. And, you know, your vote not just this show, but overall for Free
This
Speech TV.
is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak. It's Friday. It's the end of the week. It's Anything Goes weekend. It's you and me for the next 3 hours, whatever's on your mind. I've got a few things to share with you. Is Tommy Tuberville's Senate hold on military promotions, is he doing this so that Trump can fill the top ranks of the military in 2025? Just asking. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. Also, new charges against Donald Trump. The boss wants it deleted, right? And more evidence that Russians created the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing for the GOP. This coming from a fellow who is right in the middle of it. We'll tell you about that. In the second hour of the program, giant health insurer Cigna is turning down hundreds of thousands of claims, spending fewer than 2 seconds on each claim that they turn down. Amazing. Also, example of narcissistic collapse as a far-rightee cries bitter tears after Trumpees admit lying. In this case, it's Rudy Giuliani. In Florida now, it turns out the black Americans must also not only, must not only acknowledge that slavery gave great benefits to folks by teaching them skills, but also that when there were massacres involving black people, that they had a role in those. Yeah. Also, is Bidenomics working in our third hour? And are the major automakers building a new nationwide vehicle charging network? We'll get into that in the third hour. So a lot to talk about. I wanted to start out, though, with my daily take over at HartmannReport.com. It is, it's all about Tommy Tuberville and whether, he's got this hold on all military promotions that have to be approved by the Senate, which are, all the senior level military. And for example, because of this, there is no commandant of the Marine Corps right now, or won't be shortly. I believe the current commandant is going to retire either this month or next. Let me just say up front that this is my own personal conspiracy theory that Tommy Tuberville says that the reason that he's holding back on these promotions, which also include raises, but mostly, filling these top slots in the military, he says that the reason he's doing it is because he doesn't like the military's abortion policies. That, if you're stationed in Iraq or Afghanistan or some country, we have 700 military bases around the world. If you're stationed in some country where abortion is illegal, or even in a state in the United States where abortion is illegal, and you're a woman in the military and you've raped and impregnated, or you just have a pregnancy that is, unwanted, you have the right to get an abortion, according to the military, and they will give you time off and pay to fly you to some place where you can get that medical service. And Tuberville objects to this. But the military has made it very clear they're not going to change this policy, period. They're not negotiating with Tuberville. They're not trying to work something out. So why is he doing this if he knows that this is, a fool's errand? Well, first of all, this is the same Tommy Tuberville who his hometown newspaper back in January of 2021 published pictures of him at Trump Tower with Rudy Giuliani and, a bunch of the other co-conspirators, both of the Trump sons. This is like, the night before January 6th. Apparently a planning session. And several people went to Facebook and Instagram with photos of them with Tommy Tuberville at Trump Towers that evening, one as late as midnight. So this was a guy, Mike Lee got the phone call that was intended for Tommy Tuberville. This is the guy who was apparently deeply involved in this effort to overturn our government on January 6th. So why is he holding up military promotions now? Well, it's increasingly looking, at least to me, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, that one part of the military, specifically Acting Secretary of Defense Chris Miller, helped set up January 6th. He, wrote that famous memo where he said that the National Guard cannot go to the Capitol building, may not help the Capitol Police, may not use any of their surveillance or intelligence apparatus to help the Capitol Police.
He held a meeting in the middle of the assault on the Capitol that Mike Flynn's brother, General Charles Flynn, was in, where they decided not to provide any kind of help to the Capitol Police, and then lied about it to Congress and to the press for almost a year before their lie got busted. So, number one, you have part of the military, the Secretary of Defense, actually, going along with Trump in this plan to assassinate the Vice President of the United States, throw the country into chaos, declare a national state of emergency, and keep Trump in power. Chris Miller was, I think it's fairly obvious, was going along with this. So then, on top of that, Donald Trump issues this executive order. And the executive order quotes a whole bunch of conspiracy nonsense, like this, for example. This comes from it. Dominion voting systems and related companies are owned or heavily controlled and influenced by foreign agents, countries, and interests. The forensic report prepared by experts found that the Dominion voting system is intentionally and purposefully designed with inherent errors to create systemic fraud and influence election results. Quack, quack, quack. It goes on and on from there. And then he ends it by saying, accordingly, I hereby order effectively, immediately, the Secretary of Defense. Now, that would be Chris Miller, right? The guy who forbade the National Guard from protecting the Capitol. Effective immediately, the Secretary of Defense shall seize, collect, retain, and analyze all machines, equipment, electronically stored information, and material records required for retention under the United States Code Title 42, blah-de-blah, included but not limited to those identified in the footnote. And then it gets really wild. The Secretary of Defense has discretion to determine the interdiction of national critical infrastructure supporting federal elections. Now, that could mean that he just basically gave to the military, to the Secretary of Defense, the power to shut down our roads, to shut down our airports, to basically using the military. And if anybody resists, the military is authorized to use deadly force against them. This executive order basically would have led to the immediate takeover of America by our military. So then what happened? Why didn't he sign the executive order? It was prepared for him on December 16th. Why didn't he sign it? Well, it looks like, and again, we don't know. That's why I said this is my personal conspiracy theory, but I think there's some pretty compelling evidence out there. It looks like it was General Mark Milley who told Trump, no way. The military's not going to go along with this. I don't care what your Secretary of Defense says. And if that's the case, I mean, that's why Trump was trashing Mark Milley in Bedminster, which is what he was just, this was the three new indictments that were issued last night against Trump. One of them, two of them had to do with destroying the servers down in Florida, the security the security footage, the cameras. But the big one was for waving around a top secret document from General Milley in Bedminster to a couple of reporters and showing them a classified document that A, Trump wasn't supposed to have, and B, he wasn't supposed to show to anybody. So if Trump was unable to execute this executive order because the military said, no, we're not going to go along with this, then what's his first imperative if he gets reelected? And keep in mind, Tommy Tuberville was right there in the middle of all this in 2021, January 2021. What does he have to do? He has to stack the upper levels of the military with his people. And Tuberville is holding open all these positions the exact same way, or a very similar way, I guess, analogous to the way that Mitch McConnell held open Merrick Garland's seat for, 440 days is my recollection. It was well over a year. Just so Trump, when he came into office, could pack the Supreme Court. So, what say you? What do you think about my possibly nutty theory here? New charges on Donald Trump. I'll tell you about those in just a moment. I guess I sort of just did. And more evidence that the Russians created the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing. This is getting interesting. I'll tell you about that on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. It's Anything Goes Friday, picking up your calls also as soon as we finish up with those, which should be shortly. Stay with us.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be right back. Anything Goes weekend here. And welcome back. Patrick in Chicago listening on the Thom Hartmann app. Hey, Patrick, what's on your mind today?
Hi, it's Bill and Tom. I just wanted to respond to something you had said a few days ago about how to fight big lies. And I was kind of thinking about it, and I've come up with a few of what I call hard, aggressive truths that you can use. And I'll just read a couple of them. Republicans are trying to destroy we the people from inside our own government. Republicans hate capitalism and want to end free speech for corporate Americans. Republicans want voters to starve and dehydrate in line. Republicans ended abortion to fund child labor and abuse. Republicans want the planet to burn and your home to be destroyed. These are just a couple of examples of what I think are aggressive, hard truths that the Republicans would be hard-pressed to defend against because they haven't even spoken out against their members who have proposed these kinds of things. So as far as I'm concerned, every time the Republicans say something that's ridiculous, you should consider that a official platform of the Republican Party until someone like Mitch McConnell comes out and says, we don't agree with that, or the Republican Party does not stand with this, ridiculousness. Until they do that, I don't think you should try and separate the MAGA Republicans from the regular Republicans because they don't separate themselves. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. My concern, and maybe it's misplaced, is that we really do need two parties to have a two-party system. And you need two parties that agree on the fundamentals, which is that, our system of government is appropriate and works. And increasingly now the Republican Party doesn't want our system of government. I mean, this new plan that came out from the Heritage Foundation would give the president and the FCC the ability to shut down the internet, shut down radio and television programming that the administration doesn't agree with. I mean, that's serious stuff.
That's why I think that these truths, when we respond, they have to be aggressive. We can't just simply say what the Republicans are doing. We kind of have to be hyperbolic about it to get people drummed up, to get them angry, to get them upset, because otherwise the Republicans are really good at that. All they do is they just have to open their mouths and people get upset.
I get it. Well, Patrick, very interesting. Thank you very much for sharing those. That was good stuff. Steve in Phoenix, Arizona. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, Tom. Happy Friday to you and everyone else.
Thank you.
This Tuberville situation, this is beyond concerning. This is extremely dangerous, and everything you laid out seems to be, in my opinion, spot on. One of my thoughts is, if Joe Biden is the commander-in-chief of the military, there's got to be some workaround around this. If Trump was in power, he'd find a workaround on this and get it done and do it. And we're in extraordinary times, and something has to be done. Some of the smartest people in the Congress and Senate need to work on something to get Joe to do something, because we can't just let this lay opened up. One thing I have seen is VoteVets, the organization. They're running some ads. I've contributed a few bucks to them.
Yep. I get their emails every day. Yeah, or almost every day.
Oh, yeah, I do too. And that's just basically it. Something's got to be done, and that's all I've got to say.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how long Tuberville can hold out on this, and I think it's going to tell us how committed he is to, or whether his commitment. I mean, if he can hold out for another year and a half, A, I'll be astonished, but B, that will pretty much prove that my hypothesis is correct, in my opinion. Steve, thanks. Thank you for the call. It's 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Between
40 years of Ronald Reagan's neoliberalism destroying the American middle class and all the just horrors of January 6th and the Trump presidency, America's waking up, and that's a really good thing. There's actually, some books coming out about this. Mine, The Hidden History of Democracy. Neil Howe's The Fourth Turning is here. And it looks like a moment of American renaissance is upon us, if our media doesn't screw it up, which raises the question, can we have democracy and Fox News? Can the two coexist? Like, when Fox News runs chyrons saying that essentially Joe Biden is a wannabe dictator who's throwing Trump in jail because he's his political opponent. There's a whole rant about this and an in-depth analysis of what can we do with regard to repairing our media here in the United States over at HartmannReport.com. I think you'll find it interesting. Check it out. So, as mentioned, Jack Smith yesterday, 3 new superseding indictments. The essence of them is that Trump was covering up his crime. Well, the essence of 2 of them is that Trump and Walt Nadeau, his valet, and this other guy, Mr. De Oliveira, who was the maintenance supervisor at Mar-a-Lago, tried to cover up the crime that Walt and Donald were committing by trying to nuke the videos, the surveillance video. And apparently Jack Smith has been able to recover that surveillance video because he's got these guys having like whispered conversations like, hey, let's not tell anybody about this and all this kind of stuff. Unless, Trump employee number 4 has flipped, which also appears pretty much to be the case. But the real significance of this is that when Jack Smith goes before a jury and says, yes, Donald Trump committed this crime, he had these documents, he held these documents, he was doing it with criminal intent, he knew he was committing a crime, now he can say, and here's the proof, he tried to cover it up. I mean, how do you rebut that? This is really going to nail him, I'm telling you. Also, and he's squealing about it, this morning over on his Nazi-infested social media site. Meanwhile, Les Parnas tells James Comer is running the Oversight Committee, and he's the one who's doing all the Hunter Biden investigations. And Lev Parnas was a Trumpy guy. He's actually an American. He was born in Brooklyn, but his parents are Ukrainian. He grew up speaking Ukrainian, and he has served as an interpreter. In fact, he went to Ukraine with Rudy Giuliani and was Giuliani's interpreter when Giuliani was trying to find dirt on Hunter and Joe Biden and the whole Burisma thing. Right now, Lev Parnas is serving out house arrest for a straw and foreign donor violation. He was funneling foreign money into the Trump campaign illegally. So anyhow, he sent a 10-page letter to James Comer, the House Oversight Committee chair, and drops a fairly major bombshell in this thing. He says that he and Giuliani were told a story by a Burisma businessman named Vitoly Prush, who claimed that during a meeting between Hunter Biden and the Kazakhstan Minister of Foreign Affairs, Hunter Biden became extremely intoxicated, apparently a combination of alcohol and drugs, and passed out. And while he was out, Russian FSB agents, Russian secret police, and Burisma's CEO, his team, copied the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop. And then they used those contents to hack into and access his iCloud account. And thus, they hacked his phone, which I reported to you last week. And apparently this was the information that was then massaged by the Russians and then put on another laptop, a completely separate laptop, to make it look, cloned onto that laptop to make it look like it was Hunter Biden's laptop, and then dropped off at, laundered through the office of this blind computer repair guy, who promptly turned it over to Rudy Giuliani. Well, Rudy Giuliani, was... he wasn't at this meeting, but he was tight with Lev Parnas, and Parnas was the guy who knew about this meeting. Giuliani was told that the laptop had embarrassing photos, but there was no evidence of financial crimes on it. That's particularly interesting. Lev Parnas says that explicitly
no evidence of financial crimes. He says it's only later that the idea of finding proof of financial crimes was introduced. And, so basically he's saying that, a bunch was added to Hunter's laptop after the fact. But don't let that stop Republicans, right? By the way, this all happened in 2019. Joe Biden was not even in office at the time. So how he might have been able to, help Hunter or threaten Ukraine or whatever is pretty unclear. But anyhow, it's just another example of how, frankly, I believe we're being manipulated. You recall Kevin McCarthy in 2016 just came right out and said that all of their investigations into Benghazi and Hillary's server were designed to hurt her chances in the election so that in 2016 Donald Trump could become president. And that's exactly how it worked out. So now they're trying to do the same thing with Joe Biden. Let's take down Biden by taking down his son. And let's, create this whole phony baloney kerfuffle just like they did around Hillary Clinton. And it appears to be working. Anyhow, I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It is Anything Goes Weekend, and I'll be picking up your calls right after this.
Hey, it's $5 Friday, or $15 Friday, or $50 Friday, or $500 Friday. Well, no. I'm getting out over my skis here. This is the day, and we occasionally do this here, on Free Speech TV. This is the day when we ask you to consider becoming a regular sustaining member of Free Speech TV. In the normal pledge drives, it's like, hey, please call now, and if you give $100, you can get my new book and stuff like that. This is a different thing. Free Speech TV is, a great network, and imagine trying to run a business and not knowing how much money is going to come in, having unpredictable revenue. It's a challenge. And so what we're trying to do is get as many people as possible, to sign up and say, yes, please, charge my credit card $5 a month or $15 a month or $50 a month, whatever you can afford, whatever's comfortable and convenient for you. And out of that, Free Speech TV now builds a base, a predictable base of support. As a Free Speech TV sustaining member, you'll also get some added perks, like a year-end gift, special invites to events throughout the year, and more. Just this week, Free Speech TV hosted a special event for monthly donors with the filmmaker and producer of Free Speech TV's newest documentary, Powerlands. They had a wonderful time, and hopefully you can join next time. It's a marvelous thing. By the way, free speech has, I mentioned when we're doing the pledge drives, the large gifts that you get premiums for, right? The $20 gifts, the $50 gifts, the $100 gifts. And Free Speech TV has basically a room full of old gifts. And not old in a bad way. I mean, some of them are just really special things. A lot of them are, books and caps and mugs and just we've had some really fascinating premiums, I think is what they're called, over the years. And so if you sign up today for $5 Friday here, for $5 or whatever amount you would like to give on a monthly basis, if you sign up to become a member of the sustaining donor community, somebody from Free Speech TV is going to go into that back room with a box, and they're going to find something and stick it in that box, and you're going to get a surprise in the mail. And I have no idea what it will be, and neither will you until you open the box. But it's 27 years of Free Speech TV. There's a lot of good stuff in there, old shows, just all kinds of cool stuff. And by the way, if you're already a sustaining donor, first off, thank you very much for that. But if you would like today's mystery box, if you increase your sustaining donation by $5 or more today, then you'll also get a special mystery gift. So, here's your opportunity. Free Speech TV is just such a special place. I've got to tell you, it is such an honor to be on this network. I remember when John Schwartz, who used to be on the board of Free Speech TV, maybe still is. I don't think he is. Came to visit me here in Portland back more than 15 years ago, maybe 16 years ago, and I was doing the show, and we were talking about something unrelated. That he had a foundation that he wanted me to be on the board of, which I am now on the board of. But he said, "Have you ever thought of putting a camera in the studio?" And at that time, Free Speech TV was mostly running documentaries. The only live show that they had was Democracy Now! And I was like, yeah, that would be interesting. And so we got one of these little webcams on a stand, and we set it on the opposite other end of my table where I was doing the show from. And that's how it all started. All of this live programming you see on Free Speech TV. It started out with me talking into that little tiny camera. And then later on, we got bigger cameras, and we got a video switching board, and we got lights, and other shows started putting cameras in their on, and Free Speech TV. I think the next show that they picked up was Stephanie Miller's show. We share an agent. So anyhow, it's grown organically, and it's grown because we get good feedback from you. From people who watch this program and say, yeah, I like that. I want more of that. Please don't have that program go away. Please, we want this kind of programming. And, your vote for not just this show, but overall for Free Speech TV, for the kind of programming that you're getting on Free Speech TV, is you're calling 877-378-8669 right now and saying, yeah, I'd love to give $5 a month or $15 a month. Or if you're, like I said, if you're already giving $5 a month, call and say, why don't you kick that up to 10? And then you'll get your mystery box, which may or may not be incredible. So call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out. Hey, welcome back. Anything Goes Weekend. What's on your mind? Russ in Hickory Hill, Illinois. Hey, Russ, what's up?
Thank you for taking my call, Tom. I wanted to talk about Trump, but first, did you ever hear this thing called topstate.com?
Fox State?
Top, T-O-P,
oh,
state,
top.
yeah.
No,
the guy goes around ranking your states.
Huh.
And it's funny because one was Mississippi. I can't repeat how bad it was, he said. They're the 49th worst state for, like, if you want to build a business and go into the state, he goes around and seeing what state's the best to go into. Mississippi was ranked 49th. He said, I wouldn't send dog catchers in there.
Who was 50?
I don't know. I don't know. He's on once and then, it never came. But if you look it up, you'll find out. But why I called is... I
can see the slogan, we're worse than Mississippi. Okay, but why you called was...
West Virginia or Arkansas or Alabama.
Yeah, probably.
But why? I'm watching these people today on TV in Iowa about Trump. He's being indicted again. Well, we're kicking the Tom. Let's face it. There's nobody going to overtake Trump. I think it should be winner take all. He loses. He goes. There'll be no trial. Him and his family. They go to prison. All of these people. Because you're just going to try them out there in 2026. the door's open now, Tom.
Yeah.
You're never going to put the toothpaste back in the. They're not going to be.
So you're convinced that Trump is going to be the Republican nominee no matter what? Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, Tom. Even these people in Iowa. Well, you know, we like this guy, but when it gets down to it, Tom, he's 48. DeSantis is a joke.
No, DeSantis is collapsing, and the question is who's going to replace him. I don't think that Tim Scott has a chance. I can't believe that Republicans will vote for a black guy. Although Tim Scott was elected in South Carolina, but you know there's a large black vote in South Carolina.
Yeah, but let's be honest, Tom. Nikki Haley pulls his choker chain, and the other senator, he shuts his mouth like he did with that bill he had up. Yeah, and then pull his choker chain.
Right, and you know, with Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley, I don't see them gaining any traction. I think Chris Christie might have a chance. I think he thinks he's going to be the last man standing. He's the only one who's seriously taking on Trump. Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's in the tank right now in the polls, but you know, we've seen that before. I mean, remember President Paul Ryan or President Scott Walker?
Well, let's be honest, Tom.
Or President Howard Dean.
Baseball back to an 80-year-old lady.
Yeah.
Chris Christie. So let's not praise this guy. Remember, he left New Jersey with a 13%, and he bragged how he won.
Oh, I know.
He killed the Republican Party.
Yeah, and he was a criminal. I mean, you know, he with his political payback and stuff. But that's kind of what you have to be a Republican. So, anyhow,
who
Russ,
do you got in the future?
Yeah, Russ, I got to move along. But thanks for the call. It's good to hear from you, Katie in Hamul, California. Hey, Katie, what's up?
Oh, hi there. Yeah, I wanted to. Well, just really quickly, I'm going through decades of things getting ready. I'm a couple of years older than you, so this is the time to do it. But I came across a 1994 article about the Klan in Pensacola, Florida, in full regalia, protesting clinics where abortions were performed. So there you go. That's, the Klan shows up.
There's an awful lot of anti-abortion sentiment among the white supremacists because they believe that white babies are being aborted, middle-class women.
You know what? What progress is it that they don't wear their uniforms anymore when they protest? So moving on, after a little sarcasm there, I was on the same page as Patrick in Chicago. It kind of had the same idea I did. I think yesterday there was a when they go high, we go. When they go low, that we go high, and I go, oh God, no. Having been a Democrat for virtually 65 years, if not 75, but it was just what I think is that we should go low. And I said, my husband, and just stab them in their rancid underbelly with the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like making up stuff. And that really visceral, ugly ad that you showed, I don't think it was the campaign, the Trump campaign owned it, but it was out there. It was scary. And I think, oh, damn. And people were saying, well, we could do this or that. No, we can just tell the truth and, the old Harry Truman thing. But it is just so, climate change is so scary. And we're talking all these phone calls about trees and stuff. The one thing that's important about that is what you said, is that they're accepting it by saying, okay, let's try whatever the stupid thing they said, 6 million trees or 10 whatever.
1 trillion.
And, but we need to do that scary on climate change. And I have to tell you, like 2 phone calls ago, so maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I called you with this very simple question. Why should I want my aging millennial children to have kids? Why should I want grandchildren? And I don't know. I think that question stumped you a little bit. And it was all based on climate change, overpopulation, migration, the refugees from who wants to bring someone they love dearly into this world? And so I'm just reminding you, I was that phone call. You get tons of phone calls. You probably don't remember it. But, and then what I proceeded to do since that phone call is listen to every one of your shows and go, oh, okay, I'm getting it's been nothing but just really horrible news. Of course, the climate just in the U.S., that news alone. And so far, I'm checking with my kids in Australia. I don't go, hey, anybody, with child? I don't do that. I just go, what's new?
Yeah.
Let's go like,
No, I get it, and I, it's a delicate balancing act, kind of psychologically. I mean, I have grandchildren, and
I know you have your adopted grandchildren.
Yeah,
fabulous.
Yeah, and they're I mean, they're 2 and 5 right now, and 80 years from now is going to be the 21st or the 22nd century, and it's. Whatever is coming is going to be fully here, Yeah, and it's. On the one hand, I'm very concerned about that. On the other hand, I'm seeing an enormous amount of very rapid progress. China is outdoing the world in terms of solar installations. The United States, Joe Biden has, the Inflation Reduction Act, some massive stuff. We got the big car manufacturers in the United States now building a network of charging stations.
My son works and he's a professor of marine sustainability. So, I mean, he is right in the heart of that sort of thing. Right. And he terrific. But still, thinking about the kids. But my point with this, getting back to this, is we need truly scary, truth-filled ads about climate change and the Republicans' utter recalcitrance and even barely accepting it. And those are the ads that we need. Yeah. We need really visceral ads.
I am with you.
And Kate, they'll be all true.
No, I get it. I completely get it. And I don't disagree. I mean, there is, this was a big debate that we had when Leonardo and I did that video that was attached to yesterday's Daily Take. Which was, you don't want to get so scary that people just shut down. You don't want to get so scary that people get, suicidal or something like that. But on the other hand, we're talking about genuinely scary stuff, and it has to be discussed. And it's, how do you do it in a way that the scientists are all still saying there's still time, and the human species is very adaptable. So I'm kind of hanging on to that. I still have hope. Katie, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Charles in Miami. Hey, Charles, what's on your mind today?
Hey, how you doing, great Tom?
Good.
Okay, great. I'm thinking, I keep hearing this stuff from my government and
Charles, I need you to get your mouth closer to the microphone. I'm having a hard time hearing you. Unless you're driving.
Okay. Is it better? Is it better?
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Okay, well, I'm saying, I keep hearing from my legislator and my governor that slavery was beneficial or got skills from it. And now you're saying that towns that was, they had massacres or whatever, black people was part of it or the reason why or whatever. And I'm just thinking, well, there's a study in California about reparations. And are they trying to get ahead of that?
I don't think it's that simple. I think it's actually simpler than that. I don't think this is some kind of sophisticated effort to prevent reparations from happening. That's going to be an uphill climb no matter what, no matter where. I think this is just good old-fashioned antebellum racism. They're trying to justify, basically what their ancestors did. I mean, Brian Kemp in Georgia, his family was the first white family to bring enslaved Africans into the state of Georgia, according to Greg Palast's research. I mean, a lot of these guys have deep roots in that world. And if Ron DeSantis doesn't, he's certainly speaking to an audience that does. So that's what I think is going on, Charles. I think they're trying to justify their own past. Charles, I got to go, right. But thank you. Peggy in Rapid City, South Dakota. Hey, Peggy, what's up?
Yeah, a while ago you had talked about the Supreme Court decision which legalized stalking, and I've been stalked and strangled by an ex-boyfriend, and then I was also followed home by two men who tried to break open my door and say they were going to party on me. So I ran and grabbed my rifle. Grabbed my rifle, aimed it at them. They said, "Oh, look, she won't kill us. She looks like she's 16 years old." So they planned on raping a 16-year-old, someone they thought. I was 22, actually, at the time. So I said, what am I going to do to save these guys' lives and protect myself? So I shouted, just give me an excuse to kill another man. And they went, another man, and then they ran. And, I had to think of something so I wouldn't have to shoot them.
Yeah.
And so then I had the chance to call the sheriff, and he showed up. And he goes, well, they told me what you said. Had you killed somebody? And I said, no, but I had to think of something so I wouldn't have to kill them. And he goes, well, would you have shot them? I go, well, of course I would have. To have two big men come in and tell me they were going to rape me and allow them and possibly kill me afterwards. And the deputy was acting like I didn't have a right to protect myself because it was only going to be rape, to kill somebody over that. Geez. I mean, yeah, it's so this new SCOTUS ruling, I can't, I'm now 66. Back in that time, I was in my 20s and a local singer celebrity, so that, just like the case that they had taken on about the singer that was stalked.
That's right. She was stalked from the bar or stage or where she was performing.
Exactly, and that's exactly what happened to me. And so This is really hitting home to me.
Yeah, I can imagine. This is, this court is so bizarre. I mean, they are so, buried in the. They are so buried in the 1950s. It's just incredible. Peggy, thank you for sharing your story with all of us. That's compelling, and again, good on you. Thank you. We'll be right back. It's 47 minutes past the hour. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back. Frank in Thompson Falls, Montana. Hey, Frank. What's up?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Quick background and then a question. My cousin went to Annapolis and was captain of a ship. My dad was a senior chief petty officer. My other cousin was a senior chief petty officer and guarded U.S. embassies all over the world. And my other cousin was an FBI agent that died in the line of duty.
Whoa!
So I can appreciate what you're saying about Tommy Tuberville because that's a disgrace. But my question is, how is that any different from us committing coups against countries in South and Central America?
Well, we shouldn't be doing that. And to the best of my knowledge, we're not right at the moment.
We should. Yeah, we shouldn't be doing that, but that's the same playbook that we've used in other countries.
Yeah. Yeah, and which is another reason why it might be something that people like Tuberville would be thinking of.
Well, you would think so, but he's not because he's just looking at political power, and he's with Trump, so that's his whole deal.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what it is. But yeah, and the good news I think, Frank, is that at the moment our foreign policy seems to be a little more reasonable, But yeah, during the Reagan administration, when he was trying to overthrow Nicaragua, when he successfully did actually overthrow the Nicaraguan government and was messing in Honduras and El Salvador and sent what's his name down there and in El Salvador, and suddenly the death squads were active and people were showing up with the bullet in the back of the head with their hands tied behind their backs, and
they just.
Go ahead.
They just had the country that was overthrown by the military, and the guy that took over control was trained by us in the U.S.
Yep, you're talking in Niger. Yeah. It's
right.
Yeah, that's the school of the Americas, and I'm imagining, I'm guessing, and we used to protest against that back in the day. Frank, thank you.
I've been protesting against it my whole life.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Even though I'm from a military family.
Yeah, okay. Frank, thanks a lot for the call. Good points, all. Katana in Longwood, North Carolina. Am I saying your name right?
Katana, but you were supposed to do it. I'm used to it.
Hi.
Hey, Tom. I feel like a couple weeks ago, I believe it was, I tried to call in, I couldn't, but you were discussing about the evangelicals and the white nationalists and the takeover of the Republican Party. And there are two documentaries that have, one just recently come out, one is they're actually kind of old, but they were trying to exploit this and wake everybody up and tell you that, there's something going on in this evangelical church. They got plans. They've had plans for a long time, and they've been working them. And we can see that they've been working them. That's Reagan, that's Bush, that's half our Congress. All of them are in some denomination of evangelicals. And I kind of blame the church and I blame the government. The government and this Anybody can teach whatever they want. Our education system is killing us from the inside. How do you have a cohesive country when everyone is learning something different? The lost cause should have never been in anybody's educational system because it simply wasn't true. Our media has now let this explode because they let Trump get away with this alternative facts thing. Mm-hmm. Now we no longer have true and false, but they have been working on this plan forever. Yeah. And now it's coming to fruition, and people are just looking like, oh, well, what? Christian churches aren't even calling them out for this abuse of their own religion. Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense. And now I feel like we're too far gone. You can't take this religion out of nobody now.
Yeah, it is a challenge, Katana. At the very least, we should be enforcing the law around IRS nonprofit status. But yes, this is a real crisis. Thank you for the call. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. You know, back in the day, the Republicans had these kind of soft, big lies, Ronald Reagan telling us that if we just cut taxes on billionaires, it'll trickle down to all the rest of us. And climate change isn't caused by fossil fuels, of course. And voter fraud is caused by black people, and gays and lesbians and trans people want to convert your children. All these lies. Public school teachers are communists. They really are not working. So now the Republicans have a new strategy because their lies are not working, including their lies about COVID and about Russia and about the media and everything in public schools, abortion. Because their lies aren't working, they're actually going after university-level researchers who look into how lies are created and propagated across social media and in the media and in politics. It's an amazing story reported by both the Washington Post and the New York Times. I got a whole rant about it over at hartmanreport.com. Check it out. Come back 53 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls here. Tyrone in Chicago. Hey, Tyrone, thanks for listening to WCPT. What's up?
Hi, Tom. How you doing today?
I'm well. I hope you are too.
Yes, I am. Hey, Tom. Now the new charges. I don't like to say his name. I like Nancy Pelosi. The new charges on former 45. Now, what's that? What's the? I heard you say about the two of them. What was the third charge on them?
The two of the charges have to do with, wiping the servers, trying to cover up the crime. The third charge goes back to Bedminster. This has been in the news now for a month or two, that there were these two reporters who were writing a book about one of the guys who worked for Trump, and Trump had consented to be interviewed for this book. And the reporters recorded the interview. And during this interview, Trump went off on Mark Milley, talking about, how much he hated Mark Milley, and then started waving around a document saying this was Mark Milley's plan to invade Iran. And I mean, that would be super, super top secret. That's the kind of stuff that Saudi Arabia would pay millions of dollars for. But it got recorded. And that recording is, and apparently Jack Smith has that document or knows what that document was. And so now Trump has been indicted for a violation of the Espionage Act of sharing classified information with somebody who's not entitled to get it.
Okay, and the other thing. Now, if I was the judge, when he come back to court, I would keep him in jail and won't get a bond. Because you know what? This is very dangerous now. So he should be locked up until his trial comes.
At the very least, they should have taken away his passport. I don't think he even needs a passport to flee the country. He's got his own 757. He could fly nonstop from New York to Saudi Arabia. Sadly, it's not going to happen, Tyrone. We do have, a two-tier justice system in the United States, one for billionaires like Donald Trump and another for everybody else. But I'm with you. Thank you very much, Tyrone, for the call. Richard in Orlando, Florida. Hey, Richard, what's up?
Hey, Tom, thanks for taking my call. Listen, my call is kind of evolved here. When they go low, we're supposed to go high, but I think we should go low ourselves, because I hear you, looking for adjectives and expletives to describe the Republicans and their latest outrage. And I find myself thinking that these people are, they're hate mongers. They're everything they do. Hate is their game.
How about when they go low, instead of our going low, we point it out. So instead of saying when they go low, we should say when they go low, we should expose it.
Well, but instead of saying my colleague and the gentleman across the aisle, I mean, how about just call them patriots?
Yeah.
Because they're not patriots.
Yeah.
They're filled with hate.
Yeah. It is this really is a challenge. I mean, it's for years and years, the way that the American media and Americans in general dealt with, the Klan and the Three Percenters and all these various up until recently relatively obscure hate groups. I mean, the Klan obviously wasn't obscure for much of its existence, but they have been lately. The way that we dealt with them was by largely ignoring them and not giving them oxygen. Now they're in the media, they're in the Republican Party, they're all over the place. And we're going to have to respond in a way that we've never responded before. I mean, this is never, in the current context anyway, I think that this is relatively new territory. And that's why I think, calling them out rather than, just calling them names. Although, the earlier person who said, the old Harry Truman thing, he said, they say I give Republicans hell. I don't give them hell. I tell the truth, and they think it's hell. That's something that I think we need to do too. Richard, thank you for the call. We'll be back. It's Anything Goes Friday. I want to get into what Cigna is doing with their claims. This is an amazing story. Narcissistic collapse and Florida's curriculum around slavery. We'll talk about those things on the other side of this break, and I'll be picking up your calls on Anything Goes Weekend.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Hey, it's $5 Friday, or $15 Friday, or $50 Friday, or $500 Friday. Well, no. I'm getting out over my skis here. This is the day, and we occasionally do this here, on Free Speech TV. This is the day when we ask you to consider becoming a regular sustaining member of Free Speech TV. In the normal pledge drives, it's like, hey, please call now, and if you give $100, you can get my new book and stuff like that. This is a different thing. Free Speech TV is, a great network, and imagine trying to run a business and not knowing how much money is going to come in, having unpredictable revenue. It's a challenge. And so what we're trying to do is get as many people as possible, to sign up and say, yes, please, charge my credit card $5 a month or $15 a month or $50 a month, or whatever you can afford, whatever's comfortable and convenient for you. And out of that, Free Speech TV now builds a base, a predictable base of support. As a Free Speech TV sustaining member, you'll also get some added perks, like a year-end gift, special invites to events throughout the year, and more. Just this week, Free Speech TV hosted a special event for monthly donors with the filmmaker and producer of Free Speech TV's newest documentary, Powerlands. They had a wonderful time, and hopefully you can join next time. It's a marvelous thing. By the way, Free Speech has, you know, I mentioned when we're doing the pledge drives, the large gifts that you get premiums for, right? From the $20 gifts, the $50 gifts, the $100 gifts. And Free Speech TV has basically a room full of old gifts. And not old in a bad way. I mean, some of them are just really special things. A lot of them are, you know, books and caps and mugs and just, we've had some really fascinating premiums, I think is what they're called, over the years. And so if you sign up today for $5 Friday here, for $5 or whatever amount you would like to give on a monthly basis, if you sign up to become a member of the sustaining donor community, somebody from Free Speech TV is going to go into that back room with a box, and they're going to find something and stick it in that box, and you're going to get a surprise in the mail. And I have no idea what it will be, and neither will you until you open the box. But it's 27 years of Free Speech TV. There's a lot of good stuff in there, old shows, just all kinds of cool stuff. And by the way, if you're already a sustaining donor, first off, thank you very much for that. But if you would like today's mystery box, if you increase your sustaining donation by $5 or more today, then you'll also get a special mystery gift. So, here's your opportunity. Free Speech TV is just such a special place. I've got to tell you, it is such an honor to be on this network. I remember when John Schwartz, who used to be on the board of Free Speech TV, maybe still is. I don't think he is. Came to visit me here in Portland back more than 15 years ago, maybe 16 years ago, and I was doing the show, and we were talking about something unrelated. He had a foundation that he wanted me to be on the board of, which I am now on the board of. But he said, "Have you ever thought of putting a camera in the studio?" And at that time, Free Speech TV was mostly running documentaries. The only live show that they had was Democracy Now! And I was like, yeah, that would be interesting. And so we got one of these little webcams on a stand, and we set it on the opposite other end of my table where I was doing the show from. And that's how it all started. All of this live programming you see on Free Speech TV. It started out with me talking into that little tiny camera. And then later on, we got bigger cameras, and we got a video switching board, and we got lights, and other shows started putting cameras in their on, and Free Speech TV. I think the next show that they picked up was Stephanie Miller's show. We share an agent. So anyhow, it's grown organically, and it's grown because we get good feedback from you. From people who watch this program and say, yeah, I like that. I want more of that. Please don't have that program go away. Please, we want this kind of programming. And, your vote for not just this show, but overall for Free Speech TV, for the kind of programming that you're getting on Free Speech TV is you're calling 877-378-8669 right now and saying, yeah, I'd love to give $5 a month. Or $15 a month. Or if you're, like I said, if you're already giving $5 a month, call and say, why don't you kick that up to 10? And then you'll get your mystery box, which may or may not be incredible. So call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Wow. Well, welcome back to our second hour, by the way. A new class action lawsuit, which was filed in U.S. District Court in Sacramento, a federal lawsuit, is charging Cigna, one of the big five insurance companies, one of the large providers of Medicare Advantage programs, too. They're claiming that in violation of California state law, which requires insurers to conduct a thorough, fair, and objective investigation into patient claims before they reject them. Keep in mind, with real Medicare, no claims are ever rejected. The Medicare, if they detect fraud, they'll go back and recover it from the provider, but they never come after you, and they never say, no, we're not going to pay for that. Medicare Advantage does that routinely. And Cigna, by the way, their CEO is one of the most well-paid healthcare executives in the country, in the history of America, actually. But this was the charge. Relying on the PXDX system, this is a computer system, a computer algorithm. Cigna's doctors instantly reject claims on medical grounds without ever opening patient files. This is from the lawsuit. Without ever opening patient files, leaving thousands of patients effectively without coverage and with unexpected bills. They go on to note the scope of this problem is massive. For example, over a period of 2 months in 2022, Cigna doctors denied over 300,000 requests for payment using this method, spending an average of just 1.2 seconds reviewing each request. And then they tell some stories. One woman, Susan Listing-Lunick, claims she underwent an ultrasound ordered by her doctor who was concerned she might have ovarian cancer. The test found a cyst on her left ovary, but Cigna denied the claim for the ultrasound and the follow-up procedure, claiming neither were medically necessary, leaving her on the hook for $723. Another Cigna user in California, Ashley Smiley, had a vitamin D test to check for a deficiency, which was ordered by her doctor. Cigna also denied her claim without giving an explanation, the suit alleges. They're asking for damages as well as to force Cigna to stop doing this. And one doctor who worked for Cigna told ProPublica, quote, "We literally click and submit." He said it takes all of 10 seconds to do 50 at a time. And thus far, Cigna is continuing to defend its use of this computer system to deny claims at, 50 at a time, I guess, or whatever. Meanwhile, are conservatives starting to wake up, or at least are Trump humpers starting to wake up? This guy is a colleague of mine, right? He's Steve Deese. He's a conservative broadcaster. He's a host on Blaze TV, on Glenn Beck's Blaze TV network. And when Rudy Giuliani came out and said, "Yes, I lied," and swore it in a deposition, "Yes, I lied about the election being stolen and all that kind of stuff." Poor Steve. He goes on the air and he says, "We're going to the mattresses for these people." And for what? For Rudy Giuliani to go down to Georgia and admit that he lied? Have Jason Miller tell a January 6th commission, "Yeah, we knew it was all BS"? What is this? How many people in this audience sent money to stop the steal 3 years ago? How many shows did I waste your time talking about this 3 years ago? How many? I still have not recovered. And then he complains about he doesn't have enough Facebook followers because he was, hustling Trump. He says, why? Because I went to the mattresses on COVID and the election fraud issue only to have Rudy Giuliani say, "Yeah, I was lying." And Jason Miller say, "Oh, we knew it was all BS." Steve, life can be tough, but, what can you say? It's at least, I think we have to congratulate him for acknowledging reality, finally, at long last. Now the question is, how much longer will he last on Blaze TV? Possible. And finally, down in Florida, you have heard that Ron DeSantis and his people have rewritten the Florida educational standards so that teachers must now instruct their students that slavery had some significant upsides, some benefits, that people apparently volunteered to become slaves because, they got free transportation across the Atlantic and they learned job skills. Only slightly, sarcastic there. But now they've gone a huge step beyond this, and this has not been so much pointed out, but this is from the instruction guidelines that the state, or requirements that the state of Florida has. Instruction includes acts of violence perpetrated against and by African Americans. But it is not limited to the 1906 Atlanta race riot, the 1919 Washington, D.C. race riot, the 1920 Ocoee massacre, the 1921 Tulsa massacre, and the 1923 Rosewood massacre. So instruction includes violence perpetrated against and by African Americans. Every single one of those massacres was 100% white people slaughtering black people. In the early 20s, 1920s, Rosewood, for example, was Rosewood, Florida, small, self-sufficient, thriving black community. Local white crackers were upset about the fact that there was an affluent black community, and they went in and they burned it to the ground. The town burned for 3 days. The buildings and homes were destroyed. Women were gang raped. As many as 150 people were killed, including children. Survivors fled and never returned. There were a few white people in that mob who did die, but that was only because some of the black people in Rosewood tried to defend themselves against being murdered or being raped or having their children slaughtered. So apparently in Florida now, self-defense by blacks during a massacre is considered violence by black people. So we're whitewashing slavery in America in the Florida curriculum. Over on Fox so-called news, they're talking about how, well, the Holocaust wasn't all that bad. If you had good skills, you could make it through the concentration camps, right? I'm almost speechless here. It's like concentration camps and slavery are job training. There are opportunities. There are benefits to these things. Are these people saying this because they want to change how we perceive history? Or are they changing these things because they're envisioning a future where slavery and concentration camps have returned? Just asking. This is bizarre at an epic level. All right, let's pick up your phone calls here. Max in Monroe, North Carolina. It's Anything Goes Friday. What's on your mind, Max?
Hi. Yeah, I actually passed by Rosewood. I think it's on the 24 when I go down to the beach.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a sign there that tells about. And there's still the town there, but the people they don't live real close together though. But there's still something there. I don't know if they're black people or not, but there's people there. But what I wanted to talk about, every time I turn on my computer and I watch, trying to read the news. There's always negative reports on Trump, and there's always negative reports on Biden. And I don't get that. So I was watching the Sunday news back, and I noticed that Ted guy, I forgot, come out on NBC, that he had a thing that said that 70% of the people don't want Biden to run, and like 40% of the people don't want Trump to run, or 60%, whatever it was. But, the thing is that why are these people, on the news all over the place when that DeSantis guy, he doesn't really have a big following. I've been working down in Florida for 9 months, and he doesn't have a big following down there.
DeSantis.
Trump has a bigger one.
Yeah. I think that's fairly clear.
I don't wonder why. I wonder why they don't have Cornel West, that Marianne Wilmington. People that basically, to me, when I hear them speak, they sound like what you were just talking about your book. They're talking about healthcare. Why don't we have healthcare? Why is Wall Street
they're saying
making
good
money
things, and
off
if we had a parliamentary system of government, it would be wonderful to have them in the race. But we don't. We have a two-party system because we have first past the post, winner take all elections, and they would basically play the role of spoilers. But I have no objection to issues being brought into the election. I'm all, and even primaries, all in favor of that. But that said, I think that the reason why you're hearing all this negative stuff about Biden is because, number one, Republicans are pushing it, and number two, the media never talks about good news. I mean, they don't view that as their brief, as their job. Their job is to tell you the bad news, to tell you the scary stuff, to, if it bleeds, it leads. And Trump pushed through this when he was president by literally every day walking out and talking to the press and saying, it's the best economy ever, it's never been this good. He was lying through his teeth, but people believed him. Biden needs to start doing that.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Or have people, who have a high enough profile that the media will pay attention to them start doing that. I realize he gave a speech on Bidenomics yesterday. He needs to do it every day. And welcome back. Keno in Lakeland, Florida. Hey, Keno, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. Thanks for your program for giving out good information for our country. And this is an item I saw that hasn't been covered in the main news, but how this bad environment, this situation from 1 billion internal combustion engines contaminating our earth, that in Georgia they've been double hit. That big Hurricane Michael went through Georgia and damaged a lot of the peach trees and peach orchards, and now up to this year, because of this heat, up to 80% of the peach crop has been destroyed. They've had drought and heat, and now this is important for people to see, that when our food crops are starting to be affected by this, not just that we're a little bit uncomfortable and get in our air conditioner, but when our food crop is being destroyed, we need to take this seriously, and this needs to be discussed seriously in the 2024 election, because it's going to only get worse.
I
don't know, were you aware that there's a huge destruction of the peach crop in Georgia?
I was aware of it. Yeah, I read the story. It was a week or so ago in I believe, in the Washington Post. What I haven't seen, Keno, and I've been kind of waiting for it, and probably because we're not close to harvest time, but I've been wondering what, much of this heat dome has been across the Midwest, and the Midwest is, a major grain producing area for the United States. And I've been waiting to hear if it's been overwhelming irrigation, or even, in places where they don't traditionally use irrigation, if the crops are starting to die in the fields. I have not heard any reports to that effect, but and I'm surprised that I haven't, frankly. Have you?
No, but we better worry about that possibility. The peach crop destruction is just a forerunner of other information. Now, I do have some good news. The Department of Agriculture, I've called into you before about this agrivoltaics, where they put solar panels up on posts in farms so they can have pastures and food down below. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture now has an office to coordinate and help people, farmers and other people possibly too, that want to put solar panels up on posts. So that's a little bit of tiny good news in the midst of a lot of tragic news.
That's great. Are they offering advice, or are they offering money?
I think both. I'm not real clear, but I think both. So if people are aware, farmers that listen to your program, be aware that there's help in getting that set up.
And it's through the USDA. That would be USDA.gov probably is their website. That's great news, Keno. We have so much solar potential in this country. We have so many rooftops that could be solarized. Building. I mean, they should just start with federal buildings at the beginning. I mean, that's a consequential number of buildings, and replace every single roof on every federal building with solar panels. And say, here's we're going to show you how it's done. But the problem, one of the big problems that we have is that we've got these for-profit electric utilities, and they have a lot of money, and they got a lot of lobbyists in Washington D.C. And so they're going to do everything they can to stop that.
Tom, I can say another good example here in my hometown of Lakeland. Our city owns the electric company, and it really helps the city with having finances. So utilities, you point out for oil should become a national utility, but electric companies in a few places here in Florida, there are these big Tampa Electric and Florida Power, but there's a few cities that, including Lakeland, and it's a role model for what could be.
I agree. Keno, thank you so much for the call. It's always nice to hear from you. It's 20 minutes past the hour. We will be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. The MAGA Republicans have a plan for America. It involves something called fascism. It's a three-step plan, actually, to take over America and turn us into a fascist state. They're following the example of Vladimir Putin in Russia and Viktor Orban in Hungary. Viktor Orban, who is held up by conservatives as the example of how a country should be run. You know, he came to Texas to give a speech to CPAC and got a standing ovation. So the three steps. Number one, take over the electoral systems and basically rig them, along with massive gerrymandering. Number two, build a fascist base by mobilizing hate against minorities, gender minorities, racial minorities, religious minorities, while merging with one of the large factions of a church. And the billionaires in the country. And number three, seize control of state power and turn the criminal justice system against your enemies. There's an op-ed about the whole thing over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, Revealed, the MAGA Republicans' Three-Step Plan for Classic Fascism. Check it out. 22 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Robin in San Diego County, California. Hey, Robin, what's on your mind today?
Good morning. I am I'm outraged and alarmed. I know a caller spoke with you earlier and made the good point of it seems like they're all MAGA Republicans, and I just want to bring up two quickly. Try to bullet this to make it quick. Kevin Kiley, who's a California representative, and also Darrell Issa, who used to cover our area in Carlsbad, but he is now representing a different area in San Diego County. As just a citizen who reads and votes, and Kevin Kiley was on C-SPAN this morning.
Robin, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I don't know if it's that you're speaking so softly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. I apologize. Kevin Kiley was on C-SPAN this morning, Washington Journal, and I had to call in because I was really just listening to him, and he is a representative that actually supported and endorsed someone that was on the January 5th permit to protest, the Capitol permit, to protest on the 5th, and has been very involved in the insurrection. And also Darrell Issa, who attended a San Diego County rally that this person, I don't know if I can name him or not, but he resides in Carlsbad. He had a rally where he called for people to arm themselves to go to the
Darrell Issa?
Capitol, and that someone named Cordy Williams, who these people backed, and Darrell Issa and Kevin Kiley backed. And then Darrell Issa was in that FBI committee. I think it was last week, and he was, questioning all the FBI's whether they really handled January 6th right and whatnot. But yet Darrell Issa attended on December 8th that rally, and he heard this guy calling people. He was right there. And this guy was calling people to the Capitol,
right, for violence.
5th and 6th.
Yeah.
This really happened. And then you talk about, go high or go low. But when you're just an average citizen, and I'm just telling you what's really happened, basically it looks like you're either, exaggerating, or you're, a Democrat trying to go after Republicans. This is really factual stuff. Yeah. And, watching Darrell Issa come out right after January 6th and making statements in committees like, well, he thought that, once the election, after the election, we could all just get along. It had to do with the special committee to investigate January 6th, and he didn't like that. He voted against
No,
it.
Issa has a long and checkered history. You know, he desperately wanted to be governor of California. He thought when they took down Gray Davis, he was going to be the nominee. And when he discovered that he wasn't, he broke down in tears on camera. But he's a very strange guy with a very strange past. And apparently, there were charges that he burned down his own company or something close to that.
He has some charges to do with, he also did something to do with the car fobs and whatnot.
Well, he had a security company, him and I believe his brother.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a long time. It's been years since we talked about this stuff, but I just, I always think of Darrell Issa as being very sketchy.
Yes. So I just wanted to touch base on that because I was so outraged, and I called this morning to C-SPAN and just said, you backed this guy, and he said that was 100% false, but it's not. He was all over his social media backing him. So
I get it, Robin.
It's just something to think about.
Okay, Robin, thank you very much. Oh man, what are we going to do as a country with a Republican Party that just doesn't believe in reality? We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
More of your calls right after this break. Hey, it's $5 Friday, or $15 Friday, or $50 Friday, or $500 Friday. But no. I'm getting out over my skis here. This is the day, and we occasionally do this here, on Free Speech TV. This is the day when we ask you to consider becoming a regular sustaining member of Free Speech TV. In the normal pledge drives, it's like, hey, please call now, and if you give $100, you can get my new book and stuff like that. This is a different thing. Free Speech TV is, a great network, and imagine trying to run a business. How much money is going to come in? Having unpredictable revenue. It's a challenge. And so what we're trying to do is get as many people as possible, to sign up and say, yes, please, charge my credit card $5 a month or $15 a month or $50 a month, I mean, whatever you can afford, whatever's comfortable and convenient for you. And out of that, Free Speech TV now builds a base, a predictable base of support. As a Free Speech TV sustaining member, you'll also get some added perks, like a year-end gift, special invites to events throughout the year, and more. Just this week, Free Speech TV hosted a special event for monthly donors with the filmmaker and producer of Free Speech TV's newest documentary, Powerlands. They had a wonderful time, and hopefully you can join next time. It's a marvelous thing. By the way, Free Speech has, I mentioned when we're doing the pledge drives, the large gifts that you get premiums for, right? The $20 gifts, the $50 gifts, the $100 gifts. And Free Speech TV has basically a room full of old gifts. And not old in a bad way. I mean, some of them are just really special things. A lot of them are, books and caps and mugs and just we've had some really fascinating premiums, I think is what they're called, over the years. And so if you sign up today for $5 Friday here, for $5 or whatever amount you would like to give on a monthly basis, if you sign up to become a member of the sustaining donor community, somebody from Free Speech TV is going to go into that back room with a box, and they're going to find something and stick it in that box, and you're going to get a surprise in the mail. And I have no idea what it will be, and neither will you until you open the box. But it's 27 years of Free Speech TV. There's a lot of good stuff in there, old shows, just all kinds of cool stuff. And by the way, if you're already a sustaining donor, first off, thank you very much for that. But if you would like today's mystery box, if you increase your sustaining donation by $5 or more today, then you'll also get a special mystery gift. So, here's your opportunity. Free Speech TV is just such a special place. I've got to tell you, it is such an honor to be on this network. I remember when John Schwartz, who used to be on the board of Free Speech TV, maybe still is, I don't think he is, came to visit me here in Portland back more than 15 years ago, maybe 16 years ago. And I was doing the show, and we were talking about something unrelated. He had a foundation that he wanted me to be on the board of, which I am now on the board of. But he said, "Have you ever thought of putting a camera in the studio?" And at that time, Free Speech TV was mostly running documentaries. The only live show that they had was Democracy Now! And I was like, yeah, that would be interesting. And so we got one of these little webcams on a stand, and we set it on the opposite other end of my table where I was doing the show from. And that's how it all started. All of this live programming you see on Free Speech TV. It started out with me talking into that little tiny camera. And then later on, we got bigger cameras, and we got a video switching board, and we got lights, and other shows started putting cameras in their on, and Free Speech TV. I think the next show that they picked up was Stephanie Miller's show. We share an agent. So anyhow, it's grown organically, and it's grown because we get good feedback from you. From people who watch this program and say, yeah, I like that. I want more of that. Please don't have that program go away. Please, we want this kind of programming. And, your vote for not just this show, but overall for Free Speech TV, for the kind of programming that you're getting on Free Speech TV, is you're calling 877-378-8669 right now and saying, yeah, I'd love to give $5 a month or $15 a month. Or if you're, like I said, if you're already giving $5 a month, call and say, why don't you kick that up to 10? And then you'll get your mystery box, which may or may not be incredible. So call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Hey, if you like the rants that I open the show with every day, they're typically published over at hartmanreport.com. Check it out. And welcome back. 34 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls. Tom in Fairfax, California. Hey, Tom, what's on your mind today? Tom, watching us on YouTube in Fairfax, California. Tom is all potted up. Everything's right on the board. Okay,
hello?
Going once, going twice.
Hello.
Oh, there you are.
Hello.
Hey, Tom.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. So what's up?
Hey, the longer this thing goes on, the prosecution of Trump, the more I just want it to go away. And I'm sure the longer it is, the worse it's going to get. And I'm just kind of wondering, is there any possibility, and there probably isn't, but what would be the possibility for a plea bargain, and what would it look like for Trump himself? Is there any way that some clever lawyers could just figure out some way for him to be neutered and stifled and just go away?
Yeah, my prediction for how this is going to play out, Tom, for what it's worth, is that that's going to be the final scenario. Trump doesn't need to engage in plea bargaining until the middle of the trial, basically. And he can use and is using the fact that he's been indicted as an opportunity to make himself a martyr, just like Hitler did when he went to prison. And he's saying, they're really coming for you, but they're coming for me, and I'm standing in the way, and all this kind of stuff. And he's raising money like crazy. I mean, he's raised hundreds of millions of dollars on this shtick. He's going to continue doing that, and he's going to continue doing that through the trial. But you can cut a plea deal with the prosecutors right up until the time the jury comes back with a decision. And so I'm expecting that he probably will, and that the prosecution and the Biden administration would probably heave a sigh of relief if they can work out something where Trump doesn't go to prison. But I don't expect it to happen until we're well into the process. Make sense?
Well, I'm just wondering it might be in the interest of the government to be proactive about it and say, look, we're going to give you this deal now or never. Take it now or forever. Hold your peace. Then we're going to trial. And
I think now would be way premature because there's so many more shoes to drop. I mean, this guy committed lots of crimes. He's not even being charged for stuff like his violations of the Hatch Act. He's not even being charged for his everyday corruption. He's not being charged for violations of the Emoluments Clause and the Emoluments Laws. He's not being charged with stealing Israeli antiquities from the White House. I mean, they're just letting all that stuff slide. I think
what do you think a plea deal would look like then?
Well, I think he would plead guilty to a few things and pay a huge fine and get his wrist slapped and maybe at the worst spend 30 days in jail. But we've never gone after a president before. I mean, we should have gone after Nixon in '74, but we didn't.
Yeah.
Jerry Ford guaranteed that. Yeah.
The most important thing would be to keep him from running again. I mean, that's the point in doing it now. Do a preemptive strike so that he just leaves the scene.
Yeah. Well, I doubt he would go along with it if it was offered to him because he's making too much money off being a martyr right now, and that would end that gravy train. And B, he really believes that he can become president again and pardon himself, and that'll be the end of it all. And I just don't think he's going to become president again, but you just never know. I mean, if there's a couple of strong third-party candidates, if No Labels has somebody on the ticket, and if the Green Party, Cornel West, is on the ticket, they may well pull enough votes away from Biden to give the presidency to Donald Trump or some other MAGA Republican. That's the worst case scenario. Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's what happened in 2016. Jill Stein pulled enough votes away from Hillary Clinton that Donald Trump became president. It was just that simple. So they're just fixing to repeat that. Tom, I got to run, but thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Devon in Pittsburgh. Am I saying that right?
Devon, yep, that's correct. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Devon?
I'm warm, but other than that,
is Pittsburgh in the part of the country that's covered with the heat alerts?
Just now we're catching the edge of the worst of it. It's hotter than it's been all summer. We've enjoyed really nice weather, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah, same here.
But yeah, it's here. So I basically wanted to boost up the case of a girl in California who is being disserved by the Marines, and that goes right up to Tuberville, which I haven't read your whole article yet or your essay this morning on what Tuberville may be aiming to do in the long run. But here's something everyone can call their senators and congressperson about today. There's a little girl, she ran away, 14 years old in California. They found her at Camp Pendleton in the barracks, and she had been there under the control of a particular Marine for evidently some time, couple of weeks. Her aunt has gone on TikTok and produced a video saying they're afraid because they believe this Marine was selling, was pimping out this 14-year-old girl.
Oh, my God. So she was in the custody of a male Marine, not a female relative or friend.
That is correct.
Oh, God.
That is correct. And she was on the base for like 2 weeks. And her aunt, who made the TikTok video, is, really upset. She's on the record. There's an ABC News report that, talks about what's going on. Camp Pendleton girl found Marine released after being detained in case of teen found in barracks. So here's where we need a commandant of the Marine Corps, because I know some Marines who are highly respected and respectable individuals. And this person at Camp Pendleton is putting a black eye on the entire Marine Corps. And the fact that we don't have right? And I don't know why the national news hasn't picked up this story and run with it. Because it's not just the fact that these people can't make plans for their family and move and la, la, la. I mean, this is a case right now happening to a 14-year-old in California. And there's no one in charge of the Marine Corps to step in and say, hey, now, let's get that man back in jail.
Actually, I think the commandant of the Marine Corps is still in place, but he's going to be retiring shortly. and the woman who is going to replace him is being blocked by Tuberville. But your point is, I get your point, Devon, and I agree with it. This is the kind of gruesome story that the media generally likes. I'm surprised it hasn't been a bigger deal, and it's also another example of why we need to make sure that our military chain of command is functional and is operating. And like I said, I have no proof that Tuberville is blocking all this because he's trying to hold these positions open for Donald Trump. But I have no proof that he's not. So anyhow, I got to run. Devon, thank you very much for the call. It's good to hear from you. Ike in Charleston, South Carolina. Hey, Ike, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hey, Tom. How you doing today, buddy? You doing all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All good.
Well,
What's up?
Well, I'm just living in the algorithm, you know what I mean? Trying to get along.
There you go.
It's either an alternate reality or it's just the way things are going to be. I don't know what the hell's going on in this country anymore, or the world in general. This kind of fits in with what I was calling you about. When it comes down to this idea of justice and what it should look like, I'll tell you right now, I'm not settling for anything less than that man going to jail for the rest of his life. I want him. I want all his conspirators all the way down the line to the janitor at Mar-a-Lago or whatever the devil he calls it. I want everybody that has been involved in this, including the sitting congressmen that were giving tours and doing all this stuff and rabble-rousing. I remember seeing Ted Cruz on the back of a flatbed at some rally somewhere before this all went down, yelling, "We've got to, every now and again, the tree of liberty has to be, fertilized with the blood of patriots and rah, rah." Okay, you big mouth people, let me tell you something I learned as a kid, as a long time ago. You let a bully get away with this kind of crap, they just keep on bullying, and that man will not shut up. His compatriots like Bannon and the rest of these guys, they'll keep on, and they'll keep on, and they'll do everything they can to tear this country down, and this is where I think the failure is. Merrick Garland, the Department of Justice, this is the time where if we needed a functioning Justice Department with God's hammer in their hand and using it roughly and putting people in jail. Trump has already violated court orders to keep his mouth shut.
Yep.
And he just keeps up, and he's going to continue to keep up. You can't let bullies like this get away with this kind of crap.
I agree, Ike. I absolutely agree. And I think that Jack Smith is holding him to account, notwithstanding the possibility of a plea deal like we were talking about a few minutes ago. But I think that he's doing major damage to our country. He's continuing to. That's the bad news. The good news is that every single day that another indictment comes down the road, more Republicans are turning away from him. The chances of his becoming the Republican nominee gets smaller.
Tom,
yeah, go ahead.
And I got one question for you. If you would, could you try to kind of diagram for me how a real RICO case would work? Do they bring them all in at one time? Do they try them one at a time? Because we've got hundreds of people involved here.
Yeah. Well, I think there's probably dozens of people involved in the central planning of this, and I would like to know Ginny Thomas's role in this, by the way. I am not an attorney or an expert on RICO. I don't know the answer to your question about the technicalities of how it happens, but I have a feeling we're going to find out very soon. Yesterday, the barricades went up around the federal courthouse, or around the district attorney's office in Atlanta. And Fani Willis is an expert at bringing RICO cases. She's done it many times.
Right.
And it sure looks, all the leaks we're hearing, basically, and all the stories we're hearing suggest that she's going to be filing a RICO case. And Jack Smith may well be doing the same, but if she files a RICO case, it'll be an instant education for all of us about what all that means.
Right. And one last thing, Tom, I never did figure out how it is that kid that released all that information on that gaming platform, how come he's not in front of the military tribunal in court-martial instead of in the federal court?
Yeah, that's a good question, too. I don't know the answer to that one either. It may well be that the federal court charges are more serious than what he would face at court-martial. Or it may be that the court-martial may come down the road. I don't know, Ike. Ike, thank you for the call. Great questions.
Listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's 45 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls in just a moment. And welcome back. On the line, Mark Taylor Canfield out of Seattle. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Well, first of all, everyone should go and read your article about the 3 steps to fascism, because as executive director for Democracy Watch News, we're headed for trouble, folks. Yeah. These people are following a model that people followed in the 1930s across Europe, and we do not want to see that again. But that's not why I called, Tom. I'm just glad that you're speaking truth to power there. I wanted to give everybody a heads up that on Monday, the Seattle City Council is voting on a new rent control ordinance sponsored by our Democratic Socialist City Council member, Shama Sawant, who's still on the council, although she's not running for re-election in November. And the council held a public hearing last week where I performed my song about rent control, and everybody seemed to love it. I got a good ovation. By the way, folks can check out my music. If you want to hear my music, you can go to YouTube and check out my video, Mother Freedom, dedicated to people fighting for freedom all across the globe. But here's the thing, Tom. The Washington State Legislature has prohibited rent control in this state. So this city law, if it's passed on Monday, will immediately be challenged, and either the city will have to go into court. But I think what the sponsors would like to do is actually just help use this as a trigger law to put pressure on Democrats in the state legislature to overturn the ban on rent control. Is that
just a simple law, or is it a constitutional issue?
No, it's a law. The voters voted down a statewide initiative in 1980 on rent control, so they consider it to have been decided unless there's another referendum. But honestly, the rents in Seattle have doubled. There are apartments renting for $5,000 a month now. And to quote a candidate for New York City City Council a few years ago, the rents are too damn high.
Yeah.
When I was in Europe and I knew I was going to move back to the United States, there were only 2 places I wanted to live, either San Francisco or Seattle. I wanted to be on the West Coast. And at that time, San Francisco was much more expensive, but not so much anymore.
Yeah.
So, and once again, in a democracy, we all know that if you have a massive lack of affordable housing and a massive homeless population, then people don't vote. They don't get involved with civics. They don't run for office, and right. Democracy really suffers. So I keep bringing that up over and over again at these city council hearings. We have had some success. There's
Mark,
a $10 late fee limit.
I'm sorry. Is there any data on what percentage of the single-family homes in Seattle are rental homes are owned by hedge funds and investors?
No, but that's a very, very good point, and that's something that people should be bringing up. I've heard Shama Sawant talk about that, but people should be bringing that up during their testimony at these public hearings, because that is a major problem. I do know that there's been a huge investment from China in Seattle, that in the private housing market, and so we have been able to get some things passed. By the way, this rent control would be tied to inflation, which is currently about 21% since I think like 2010 or whatever. But we do have a law that requires a 6-month notice for rent increases, because there were things happening where people were getting 30 days notice and then they were tripling the rents and things like that. So Shama Sawant has been basically the sponsor for most of these bills, dragging the rest of the city council with her. So there has been some success, but we definitely need rent control in Seattle. And just like the guy in New York said, the rents are too damn high, Tom. We really need to do something about that here.
I get it. I'm with you. Mark Taylor Canfield. Mark, thanks a lot for the call. It's 10 minutes before the hour. We'll be right back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Stay with us. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio, and tag you're it. Back in 2010, when Viktor Orban took over the Fidesz party in Hungary, that party was sort of like the Republican Party. It was just a conventional conservative European political party. And he has turned it into a neo-fascist powerhouse. He pushed through he altered the nation's constitution to push through what we would call gerrymandering and voter suppression so that his party will always win. He campaigned on building a wall. Build a wall was literally one of his campaign slogans, and he did build a wall across the southern border of Hungary to keep out Syrian refugees who were fleeing the violence when Russia was bombing that country. His other two campaign slogans were, and I quote, "Restore Christian purity and make Hungary great again." Seriously, back in 2010, 6 years before Trump. There's an amazing backstory about how Viktor Orban is being cloned, essentially, in the GOP. You can find the article over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. Picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Friday. Tim in Jackson, Wyoming. Hey, Tim, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I have a story of hope that I think it's exciting to me anyway. Maybe you covered it. It's happened 3-4 weeks ago, and I listen pretty religiously, but maybe I missed it. But there's a team at Caltech that has successfully transmitted energy in space through solar panels, and they are able to direct that energy back to Earth and detect it, meaning that they are going to be able to supply power at some point to remote places with no infrastructure on the ground. You don't need any. I'm sorry?
I mean, that's assuming that you can concentrate that energy into a strong enough beam. I mean, that would be pretty, because, I mean, right now, you and I are bathed in energy from outer space. We're just not detecting it because it's so low in power. But if you were to, if you had a Sirius XM satellite radio receiver, that's radio waves coming off a satellite, and it's in your car. It's covering all of North America. We're all literally receiving radiation, energy from satellites in space. Man-made energy. The problem would be if you're going to transmit, we're talking microwatts and fragments of microwatts of energy. If you're going to start talking watts or even kilowatts, which would be necessary to drive any sort of electrical device, you would be talking about a concentrated beam of energy that it would be dangerous to fly through.
Sure. Yeah. I'm not a scientist. I'm not sure. But they are able to light up LED lights. It's called the Maple system.
I'll have to look it up.
If you get an opportunity. Yeah, you have to, if you get an opportunity, it's called the Maple, and this was in March 3rd. It was Caltech, and they successfully transmitted. They lit up an LED bulb wirelessly. Now that was in space, but then they were able to direct that energy back to a rooftop at Caltech and actually detect real energy. They seem pretty excited about it. The article that I read about it, they seem pretty excited about the possibilities.
I'll have to look at that. That's fascinating. Tim, thanks a lot.
It really is.
Yeah, thank you very much for the call, and thanks for sharing that. Robin in Kingston, Washington. Hey, Robin, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Last Friday called in and just mentioned that I felt that the Lincoln Trojan Horse Project was hurtful for the Democrats, and you sort of objected to that. So I'm sort of calling back today to just give you some background in why I came to that conclusion. And I'm going to probably serve as the prosecutor against you, the defendant, and we'll have Joyce be the magistrate. So if I can make a few points here.
Sure, go for it.
I start with George Lakoff's book. I think it's called Don't Say Elephant.
No, it's Don't Think of an Elephant is the title of the book.
Yeah, okay. I gave my book away, so anyways. But anyways, Lakoff made the point that after the Goldwater loss, a lot of Republican oligarch money just fueled and rebuilt the Republican Party.
Right.
And since that time, and I'm going to skip on a few major points, but I'm just going to say something in the news today. As we know how strong and powerful and well-funded the Federalist Society is. You've spoken at length about the Koch brothers empire. We now have the No Labels Party, which you've accepted is functioning by big Republican money.
Right.
Okay, and so here's where I'm from, and I'm just going to let you know what my predictions have been in the last decade. 2012, I knew that Hillary Rodham Clinton was going to become the Democratic nominee for POTUS.
I don't think that was a surprise to anybody.
Yeah, right. But anyways, I was there. 2016, I predicted Trump on your show. 2018, I predicted that women would rule that election. They did. 2020, I came in and I just said I did not know who was going to win because of the wins and whatever. And boy, that was a close one. And then the essence of my case is in 2022, I predicted that the Lincoln Project would affect the down ballot elections that happened. And so what happened, Tom, is not talked about much, is that in 2022, for the very first time in the United States history, political electoral history, 100% of the contested seats in Congress went to one party, and that was the Republican Party. And I'm arguing that the Lincoln Trojan Horse Project has taken the position of using the fears and overreactions. And
I get it. I'm sorry we're out of time, Robin, but I get it. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Hey, it's $5 Friday, or $15 Friday, or $50 Friday, or $500 Friday. But no. I'm getting out over my skis here. This is the day, and we occasionally do this here, on Free Speech TV. This is the day when we ask you to consider becoming a regular sustaining member of Free Speech TV. In the normal pledge drives, it's like, hey, please call now, and if you give $100, you can get my new book and stuff like that. This is a different thing. Free Speech TV is, a great network, and imagine trying to run a business and not knowing how much money is going to come in, having unpredictable revenue. It's a challenge. And so what we're trying to do is get as many people as possible, to sign up and say, yes, please, charge my credit card $5 a month or $15 a month or $50 a month, I mean, whatever you can afford, whatever's comfortable and convenient for you. And out of that, Free Speech TV now builds a base, a predictable base of support. As a Free Speech TV sustaining member, you'll also get some added perks, like a year-end gift, special invites to events throughout the year, and more. Just this week, Free Speech TV hosted a special event for monthly donors with the filmmaker and producer of Free Speech TV's newest documentary, Powerlands. They had a wonderful time, and hopefully you can join next time. So it's a marvelous thing. By the way, Free Speech has, you know, I mentioned when we're doing the pledge drives, the large gifts that you get premiums for, right? The $20 gifts, the $50 gifts, the $100 gifts. And Free Speech TV has basically a room full of old gifts. And not old in a bad way. I mean, some of them are just really special things. A lot of them are, you know, books and caps and mugs and just, we've had some really fascinating premiums, I think is what they're called, over the years. And so if you sign up today for $5 Friday here, for $5 or whatever amount you would like to give on a monthly basis, if you sign up to become a member of the sustaining donor community, somebody from Free Speech TV is going to go into that back room with a box, and they're going to find something and stick it in that box, and you're going to get a surprise in the mail. And I have no idea what it will be, and neither will you until you open the box. But it's 27 years of Free Speech TV. There's a lot of good stuff in there, old shows, just all kinds of cool stuff. And by the way, if you're already a sustaining donor, first off, thank you very much for that. But if you would like today's mystery box, if you increase your sustaining donation by $5 or more today, then you'll also get a special mystery gift. So, here's your opportunity. Free Speech TV is just such a special place. I've got to tell you, it is such an honor to be on this network. I remember when John Schwartz, who used to be on the board of Free Speech TV, maybe still is, I don't think he is, came to visit me here in Portland back more than 15 years ago, maybe 16 years ago. And I was doing the show, and we were talking about something unrelated. He had a foundation that he wanted me to be on the board of, which I am now on the board of. He said, have you ever thought of putting a camera in the studio? And at that time, Free Speech TV was mostly running documentaries. The only live show that they had was Democracy Now! And I was like, yeah, that would be interesting. And so we got one of these little webcams on a stand, and we set it on the opposite other end of my table where I was doing the show from. And that's how it all started. All of this live programming you see on Free Speech TV. It started out with me talking into that little tiny camera. And then later on, we got bigger cameras, and we got a video switching board, and we got lights, and other shows started putting cameras in their on, and Free Speech TV. I think the next show that they picked up was Stephanie Miller's show. We share an agent. So anyhow, it's grown organically, and it's grown because we get good feedback from you. From people who watch this program and say, yeah, I like that. I want more of that. Please don't have that program go away. Please, we want this kind of programming. And, your vote for not just this show, but overall for Free Speech TV, for the kind of programming that you're getting on Free Speech TV, is you're calling 877-378-8669 right now and saying, yeah, I'd love to give $5 a month. Or $15 a month. Or if you're, like I said, if you're already giving $5 a month, call and say, why don't you kick that up to 10? And then you'll get your mystery box, which may or may not be incredible. So call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the third hour of our program. U.S. economic growth. Bidenomics is working. Joe Biden gave a speech about it yesterday, and it got picked up by MSNBC, I know. I don't know if any of the other networks carried any of it, but typically any kind of growth over 2% on a, per decade or per year actually is considered good. GDP growth, gross domestic product growth. We used to actually average around 3%. The decade of the 40s, the decade of the 50s, the decade of the 60s, and the decade of the 70s were all over 3% annual GDP growth per decade. Then it dropped down into the 2 range during the decade that Reagan kicked off, the 80s and the 90s. I think the 90s might have gotten up to 3%, but then back down to the 2% range. In fact, below that, actually, when you include the Bush crash and the Trump crash. But now, and the economists, by the way, were expecting 1.5% growth for the second quarter of this year. That would be April through June. Well, the numbers just came in for the second quarter yesterday afternoon, and the second quarter saw a growth of 2.4%. So that's, this is spectacular. We're looking at growth that is, we've got unemployment levels that we haven't seen since the 1960s. We've got wages going up in ways that they haven't done since Reaganomics was imposed on us. The economy is doing really, really well. And nonetheless, the Fed hiked interest rates again, on Wednesday. But in the face of all this, only 38% of Americans approve of Biden's economic management. 58% disapprove. Why is that? Because right-wing media is constantly pounding on Biden, and normal media does not talk about these numbers, and certainly doesn't give Biden credit for them. And frankly, because Biden isn't taking enough credit himself. When Trump was president, every day he'd go out there and meet the reporters, and say, it's the best economy ever. And like I said, he was lying through his teeth half the time, or most of the time. He did have an economic boomlet there in his third year, but it worked. If you tell people something over and over again, they believe it, whether it's that the economy is good or that the economy is bad, and they'll believe it in the face of evidence to the contrary. So, Biden should be telling people things are good. Things are going really good. Also, the electric vehicles, it looks like we've got a glut of electric vehicles, at least some of them. The Volkswagen new electric vehicle is up to 120-day inventory. Normally, cars are around a 50 or 60-day inventory, which means that, they're doing it. They're lowering their prices right now. But it looks like the main reason that people aren't buying electric vehicles, well, there's 2 reasons. One, they just don't know what to expect. And a lot of that has to do with word of mouth. I've got neighbors who come over, who have seen my car and come over and say, whoa, what's that? And tell me all about it. And how does it work? And I'm like, if you've got a garage or you've got a space where you can plug your car in where it's unlikely that the cable's going to get stolen, then, you should jump on it. It's so much cheaper than using gasoline. The cars are so much better. They're far more efficient. They're peppier. They've got a hell of a lot of takeoff power. You put your foot on the pedal and boom, these things just shoot off like a rocket. And, it's like the equivalent of $1 a gallon gasoline or less than that, using your home electricity to charge them. And people say, well, we're getting our electricity from a coal-fired power plant. It's still more efficient than a gas engine. Gasoline engines are only around 30% efficient at converting, the potential energy in gasoline into motion. Most of that energy is wasted as heat. In fact, there's so much wasted heat that you've got a whole radiator system and a whole muffler system that are designed to duct that heat away from the car, that wasted energy. So, they're much more efficient, they're less expensive, and now the prices are coming down substantially. And there's some very inexpensive ones. The Nissan Leaf, the Chevy Bolt, these are very modestly priced cars. So, it's all a matter of, whether you can make it work. So, but BMW, General Motors, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Mercedes, and Stellantis have announced that they are going to be building 30,000 electric charging stations across the United States. Now, I can tell you, there's a lot of charging stations out there right now. I have an electric car, and so I have an app, and I can just look and see wherever I am where the charging stations are, and they're all over the place. But and these would be open to the entire public. But currently in the United States, there's 8,700 of these fast charging stations. Only 8,700. Tesla accounts for around 2,000 of them. And this new network is expected to have 10 to 20 charging plugs per station, and they're going to put up 33,000 stations. That's going to, and they're going to be in place by next summer. I mean, this is huge news. I think that there's a provision for this in the Inflation Reduction Act. I'll bet these companies are using this. In the U.S., so far this year, 557,000 electric vehicles have been sold. That's 7.2% of new vehicle sales, which is spectacular. I mean, 7% this year. I think it was around 3% last year. So we're starting to see really substantial growth, which is like, a genuinely really good thing. All righty, let's pick up your phone calls here. Jonathan in Portland. Hey, Jonathan, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Happy Friday. So,
thank you.
I wanted to just touch on this controversy that's going on with the Florida education standards. And look, Florida is a state that celebrates Robert E. Lee's birthday, Jefferson Davis's birthday, and has a Confederate Memorial Day as state holiday.
Still?
So let's just still.
Wow.
But let's not look at what's in the standards, which I've read, which is over 200 pages. But let's look at what's not in the standards. One of the standards says to determine the factors that contributed to the growth of a modern economy. And what contributed? Well, it's slavery, and now modern slavery, which is not addressed in the least in the standards.
Right. Which is still legal, by the way, under the 13th Amendment. If you're in prison, you are legally enslaved.
Well, yes, and that's qualitatively it's different because you still have certain civil rights as a prisoner. But let's look at another example. West Africa, which is where slaves came from, in particular, let's look at Ghana, which is where Kamala Harris was in March, talking about how the U.S. was going to be giving the Ghanaian government hundreds of millions of dollars. That country has 90,000 modern slaves, according to the global global slavery index. And I don't remember anyone ever mentioning that, but it's important. And our State Department, if you go to the embassy and the State Department websites, they talk about how the U.S. is the largest bilateral development partner, how it's a principal trading partner.
No, I get all this, Jonathan. Slavery is still alive and well all over the world. There are millions of people who are enslaved. Are you trying to say that, therefore, because this is going on in Ghana and Kamala Harris went there, therefore what? That slavery was okay here in the United States?
School children should
that Florida is okay?
Have modern slavery. I'm saying that U.S. school children should have modern slavery included in the curriculum to understand that it's still alive and well.
Of course it should be.
Of course it should be, but no one's discussed.
But we're talking about American history here. This is, you're talking world history. Or civics.
Education standards aren't limited to American history, and this is American history in the making.
Yeah. This is an argument that I have heard so many times, Jonathan, from right-wingers. Rush Limbaugh loved to talk about African slavery. He would, every opportunity he had. And, as a way of essentially justifying what happened in the United States. And frankly, what continues to happen in our prison labor system here in the United States. And, I get your point. And yes, it should be part of the curriculum. But I don't share your outrage around it. I'm sorry. I'm not ready to go there. It is 15 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls on Anything Goes Friday right after this. Stay tuned. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, your media support group for we the people.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
This whole African slavery thing it's kind of analogous to let's talk about black on black crime. Give me a break. And welcome back. Karen in Renton, Washington. Hey, Karen, what's on your mind today?
Oh, hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I'm an elementary school counselor, so this is my favorite time of year, not only because I have the summer off, but I can listen to you every day.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Karen.
So I wanted to share with you, I am part of an HMO and working with elementary kids. I, of course, got COVID, even with all the precautions I was taking. But while I was down with it, I was having some really weird abdominal pains that I hadn't read were part of COVID. So I called my HMO. It was a 1-800 number. And when I spoke to the consulting nurse, and I don't know where they were, and I don't think they knew where I were, there are some of these HMOs down south. Before the nurse would answer my questions about abdominal pains, she wanted to know specifically which state I was calling from before she would answer my questions. What do you think about that?
She probably had a form she had to fill out.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, I'm guessing that they have to track, the work that they're doing, and probably she probably had to list, where the call came from. I mean, that's useful information if you're providing a service for people. You want to know where it's being used. I doubt it was anything nefarious, Karen. And by the way, the abdominal symptoms of COVID are now fairly well known. In fact, some people get COVID and all they have are abdominal symptoms.
Well, thank goodness I called her because she showed some concern. So I went to urgent care, and it turns out I had a ruptured appendix.
Whoa. Okay. Well, that wasn't COVID.
Yeah. So I was in the hospital for almost 3 weeks, and the COVID did complicate things. But at least I got a private room the whole time.
That's the upside, I suppose. Alrighty.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to know what you thought about that, but because of course I went right to the abortion thing.
No, I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I doubt it. So, Karen, thank you for the call.
Okay.
Have a great weekend. Lynn in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Hey, Lynn, what's on your mind?
Thanks for taking my call. First, I want to tell you, I do have multiple sclerosis, so you talk easier than me. So this should be short. And I just wanted to bring up the fact that maybe Kamala Harris isn't being promoted in the news by the Biden administration, because there's a rumor here that if Biden wins, he'll step down mid-term and Kamala will become president. So they're keeping their news out of the news for that reason.
Oh, Nikki Haley is saying this out loud. She's saying, a vote for Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. And I guarantee you, whatever, I wrote an op-ed about this 2 weeks ago. We talked about it for a whole day on the program, that the Democratic Party needs to start lifting Kamala Harris up because she is going to be the face of the Democratic Party in the Republican ads next November. And they are going to say, if you're voting for Joe Biden, you're voting for a black woman. And that's going to be their pitch. And we need to get ready. We need to get ready right now by making people feel good about Kamala Harris, because she's done, she's a great person and she's done a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about it the opposite. I was keeping her out of the news so that it was kind of like she's.
No, you're not going to. Keeping her out of the news is not going to stop the Republicans from doing what they're doing. And like I said, they're doing it right now. Nikki Haley just said this last week. A vote for Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris for president. And this is going to be their main message. I'm telling you. And like I said, we need to be pointing out her successes. And thank you very much, Lynn, for the call. We'll be right back. It's 20 minutes past the hour. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Diane in Chicago. Hey, Diane, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Your conspiracy theory about Tommy Tuberville.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to add to it. You see, we all know that the GOP is being really backed by Russia. And I think Tommy Tuberville is a saboteur. All right, all this abortion, that's a cover. All his white nationalism, cover. His real job is, backed by Putin and the Putin oligarchy, is to weaken all our military forces across the board.
Do you have any
That's
evidence
his real job.
of an association with Russia?
Well, the GOP, I mean, they're in Russia's front pocket, so to speak. This is theorem, all right? Just like your theory.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
This is just my own opinion. I don't have any proof.
Well, he may not be trying to do that, but he is doing that. And so when somebody is doing something, it's not unreasonable to assume that they're trying to do that.
Yeah, things the worst, right?
Yeah.
All right, and there was something else I want to add to this. That's Illinois Senator Dick Durbin. A lot of us in Illinois are very upset with him. Tommy Tuberville, he's head of the Judiciary Committee. Tommy Tuberville left the Senate floor for a whole day, not there, right? He's the only one holding up these promotions, right? He went to Trump's Mar-a-Lago, all right, to give support while Trump did a press conference and rally, right? He was gone the whole day. Dick Durbin had the chance, he really had the chance and the opportunity to push a bunch of these promotions through. And you know what he did? Well, we play nice. I'm not going to do that game.
He's doing the same thing with blue slips. Dick Durbin needs to learn how to street fight.
Yeah, I've called very politely. I've called his office in Springfield, and I've called his office in Washington, D.C. Now, Joan Esposito, she's talked about this on her program a couple of times, and she's really upset about it. Yeah. And a lot of us Illinoisans are upset about it. He had the chance.
Yeah.
And he wanted to play nicey nice. You can't play nicey nice with schoolyard bullies.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
So if we can, your listeners can start calling Dick Durbin in Washington, D.C., and if Tommy Tuberville ever leaves the Senate floor again when they're in session, to push these things through, he had the chance.
Well, are you sure of that? I mean, sometimes it takes more than one day to do these things.
Yeah, but all right, he had the chance to at least get some of them through.
Yeah, well, maybe. I can't speak to that. Okay, if Joan is saying that he had the chance, then I'll believe it. That's
I'm citing my sources. That's why I'm citing her.
Yeah.
Because she's really talked about this. She spent a whole half hour on the first time.
Yeah, and Joan is really good,
it.
and she's really smart, and she knows Illinois politics like nobody's business, and I have a lot of respect for Joan Esposito. Okay, I got to run. Diane, thanks for the call. Pat in San Diego. Hey, Pat, what's on your mind today?
Well, hi, Tom. Well, I overheard my old nemesis Daryl Ice's name, and I had to call in because Stephen Houlihan is running a second time against him. The district changed a little bit. But, I worked for the candidate that came within 1,600 votes when he was North County Coastal and lost. Won, but we only lost by 1,600 votes, and he quit. And then Duncan Hunter got convicted of a felony, so he carpetbagged over here. You don't have to live in the district, and has been serving. And I go way back. I used to buy alarms from him back when he was monopolizing the alarm industry.
Right. Yeah. So, therefore, what's the point that Daryl Issa has a chance of not getting reelected? Is that the point that you're making, or just that?
Oh, I think that since the district changed a little bit, and Stephen Houlihan was a city councilman in Santee, who was where I raised my kids, and is nicknamed Clanty, and he was able to win a city council seat there and only lose by 1,000 points. So he seems to appeal across the board. We got 100,000 votes last time. We need 120. And so, it's worth a shot. And I've been doing Democratic politics out here for a long time, and East County is, Tom Metzger country. So it's tough, but we just can't disappear from the ballot.
No, I get it, Pat. I get it. And hopefully Daryl Issa will be gone. I mean, he's been kind of a cancer on our body politic for a long, long time. Pat, thank you for the call. Carol in Monessen, Pennsylvania. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I only had one semester of German in college, so you'll have to help me with this one a little bit. By the way, Biden doesn't have to lie, as Trump did, about our economy.
Correct.
This is the best economy we've ever had.
Yeah.
And I thank Biden for it. I think he's done a wonderful job. What is troubling me about Trump is I think that he has an insatiable appetite for power and money. And I'm wondering if he actually is elected president in 2024, if people are aware of something that Hitler ended all of his speeches with, and you can say it for me better than I can, when he said, "Today, Germany, morgen die Welt," you know what he meant.
Yeah, morgen is
and
morning,
maybe you
or
can
tomorrow,
say that
and
for me better.
Yeah, morgen die Welt. Tomorrow
Morgen
the
die
world.
Welt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or der
And do you
Welt.
think that Trump will be any different? Because I think they are both malignant narcissists, and I honestly believe that Trump is becoming sicker every day.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, he's certainly becoming more panicked, and as he becomes more panicked, he becomes more violent. I mean, it's like a cornered rat. And I also agree with you that Hitler and Trump suffer from the same psychological condition, malignant narcissism. I think Hitler is smarter than Trump and more brutal than Trump.
Yes. He could get Steve Bannon in there to help him with brutality too.
Yeah, or Stephen Miller. I mean, it's
either one.
Yeah, there you go. Carol, thank you. Thank you very much for the call. We will continue with your calls on the other side of this break. It's Anything Goes weekend here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Fair and only slightly unbalanced.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And Joe Biden's in Maine right now promoting his Bidenomics. Good on him. He's getting out there and he's talking about it. I'm glad to see it. We'll be right back. Hey, it's $5 Friday, or $15 Friday, or $50 Friday, or $500 Friday. But no. I'm getting out over my skis here. This is the day, and we occasionally do this here, on Free Speech TV. This is the day when we ask you to consider becoming a regular sustaining member of Free Speech TV. In the normal pledge drives, it's like, hey, please call now, and if you give $100, you can get my new book and stuff like that. This is a different thing. Free Speech TV is, a great network, and imagine trying to run a business and not knowing how much money is going to come in, having unpredictable revenue. It's a challenge. And so what we're trying to do is get as many people as possible, to sign up and say, yes, please, charge my credit card $5 a month or $15 a month or $50 a month, I mean, whatever you can afford, whatever's comfortable and convenient for you. And out of that, Free Speech TV now builds a base, a predictable base of support. As a Free Speech TV sustaining member, you'll also get some added perks, like a year-end gift, special invites to events throughout the year, and more. Just this week, Free Speech TV hosted a special event for monthly donors with the filmmaker and producer of Free Speech TV's newest documentary, Powerlands. They had a wonderful time, and hopefully you can join next time. It's a marvelous thing. By the way, Free Speech has, I mentioned when we're doing the pledge drives, the large gifts that you get premiums for, right? The $20 gifts, the $50 gifts, the $100 gifts. And Free Speech TV has basically a room full of old gifts. And not old in a bad way. I mean, some of them are just really special things. A lot of them are, books and caps and mugs and just we've had some really fascinating premiums, I think is what they're called, over the years. And so if you sign up today for $5 Friday here, for $5 or whatever amount you would like to give on a monthly basis, if you sign up to become a member of the sustaining donor community, somebody from Free Speech TV is going to go into that back room with a box, and they're going to find something and stick it in that box, and you're going to get a surprise in the mail. And I have no idea what it will be, and neither will you until you open the box. But it's 27 years of Free Speech TV. There's a lot of good stuff in there, old shows, just all kinds of cool stuff. And by the way, if you're already a sustaining donor, first off, thank you very much for that. But if you would like today's mystery box, if you increase your sustaining donation by $5 or more today, then you'll also get a special mystery gift. So, here's your opportunity. Free Speech TV is just such a special place. I've got to tell you, it is such an honor to be on this network. I remember when John Schwartz, who used to be on the board of Free Speech TV, maybe still is. I don't think he is. Came to visit me here in Portland back more than 15 years ago, maybe 16 years ago, and I was doing the show, and we were talking about something unrelated. He had a foundation that he wanted me to be on the board of, which I am now on the board of. But he said, "Have you ever thought of putting a camera in the studio?" And at that time, Free Speech TV was mostly running documentaries. The only live show that they had was Democracy Now! And I was like, yeah, that would be interesting. And so we got one of these little webcams on a stand, and we set it on the opposite other end of my table where I was doing the show from. And that's how it all started. All of this live programming you see on Free Speech TV. It started out with me talking into that little tiny camera. And then later on, we got bigger cameras, and we got a video switching board, and we got lights, and other shows started putting cameras in their on, and Free Speech TV. I think the next show that they picked up was Stephanie Miller's show. We share an agent. So anyhow, it's grown organically, and it's grown because we get good feedback from you. From people who watch this program and say, yeah, I like that. I want more of that. Please don't have that program go away. Please, we want this kind of programming. And, your vote for not just this show, but overall for Free Speech TV, for the kind of programming that you're getting on Free Speech TV is you're calling 877-378-8669 right now and saying, yeah, I'd love to give $5 a month. Or $15 a month. Or if you're, like I said, if you're already giving $5 a month, call and say, why don't you kick that up to 10? And then you'll get your mystery box, which may or may not be incredible. So call now, 877-378-8669, or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. From international trade policy to immigration policy to housing, we've got all kinds of topics. The wars between Republicans and Democrats, the Republican efforts to induce fascism in the United States. A great selection of opinions will be found over at HartmannReport.com. So here's a question for you. If you're going to run for president on the Republican ticket and you're going to run against Donald Trump, how do you run to the right of a guy who's an open and declared fascist? This is the real crisis that the entire GOP field is facing. Ron DeSantis thinks he can do it. He's actually trying to out-fascist Trump. In fact, he's doing it down in Florida. Trump wanted to create his own police force like Hitler's SS. DeSantis did it. He wanted to have his own private army like the brown shirts. DeSantis did it down in Florida, created his own private army. Trump wanted to shut down the fake news reporters. DeSantis actually proposed legislation. He couldn't get it through his own legislature to make it possible for him to sue people. I mean, this is basically fascism on steroids. And it's come to the Republican Party, and it's presenting quite a problem for them. I've got a whole piece about it over at HartmannReport.com. I think you'll find it fascinating. Check it out. 35 minutes past the hour. Anything Goes weekend. Picking up your calls. Dave in Auburn, California. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Hey, that Marjorie Taylor Greene thing on Congress when the Democrats put it on as a commercial for the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. Well, I got one for woke. We should define it. We should embrace it. We should claim it, and we should own it. This is my adjectives. We are aware, we are educated, we are compassionate, we're kind, we're considerate, we're thoughtful. We care, and we are Democrats. We are woke. Thank you very much, Ron DeSantis. P.S. Jesus was woke.
I like it. I like it. Dave, that was a good one. Thank you very much for that. Larry in Los Angeles. Hey, Larry, what's on your mind today?
Hey, the economy again. You hit on some of it about all the news that's coming out is good. When you sit back and look at what we're getting that they're calling news, we have the real news, which is jobs are great. Gross domestic product, the numbers came in good. All the way down the line, everything that's real news actually is for the benefit of Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. It's that other news, the news from the judges, the Supreme Court, the Federal Reserve, Bannon, all of these right wing and the mainstream media also. Mm-hmm. All of that news is including Hunter Biden, which is something that we actually can't talk about because we don't have the facts. And now there's this other thing that's coming out about aliens from another world. Mm-hmm. We can't talk about that.
But that doesn't account for why Joe Biden has only a 38% approval rating with the economy.
Well, you look at cable news, and the entire news media plus cable news are all claiming that Joe Biden crashed. First, they were claiming that he crashed the economy. Now they're finally admitting that we never had a recession. But the entire news media is pumping the news for the Republicans. It's all lies. We never had a recession. We never was even headed towards recession. We came kind of close for 2 quarters, but the job numbers were so good in those quarters that we still were not ready to get into a recession. Right. And so you have this situation where Joe Biden is seeing the worst news coverage of any president in our history. And right after Donald Trump lost, cable news came in with 2 more programs so they could just trash the Democrats nonstop, 24 hours a day. And this has been going on. And when all of these people are calling up and saying, why don't the Democrats do better messaging? There isn't any news outlet that will allow them to do it.
Right. You've got to have the platform.
Yeah, all of it is right wing. And the entire news media, these multi-billion-dollar corporations, as I said last week, they love them some Republican tax cuts and quantitative easing, which is fascism. Yeah. They love that. And they're getting paid to tell these lies because they want that to come back. And so long as Joe Biden is in there, the Fed is kind of giving a little bit of hurt to all of corporate America. They're still pulling out almost $100 billion out of the stock market every month while Joe Biden is president. And the Fed says he's going to continue doing that. Right. And the money supply dropped down to zero, and no one knows what that really means. But
wait till it goes negative.
Our entire they won't go negative. I watched it; it stopped at zero, and then I guess no one has ever even thought about the fact that maybe this thing might go negative. It actually is negative because they're pulling so much money out of the stock market. Right. But it's when it hit zero. I looked at the last chart, the last graph, and it's flatlining at zero. Because I guess no one ever even thought that could even ever happen. It has never happened before. Yeah. This is a new thing.
No, it seems to me like Powell is doing everything he can to induce a recession.
Yes, he is. And when you sit back in this last hike that he did, I think this is the last one. I don't think that the data, which he claims that he's dependent upon, and when you have a inflation rate that drops from 9 to 3%. And then you have the Fed chair getting up there and saying, well, it's still high. 3% is not high.
Right. No, 3% is historic.
It's almost
it's
the
normal.
Average. Yes. And so when he's sitting up there and talking about it's just still way too high, he's lying, just plain out.
And the trend line has been downward. I realize GDP growth is up, but the things that have to do with inflation, generally those trend lines are going down. That's why I thought he was probably going to skip it this time, but I was wrong.
Oh, he's when you look at his face, he actually I saw a smirk on his face when he was talking about 2% is our.
He's a lifelong Republican. I mean, he wants to see a Republican back in the White House. He was a Trump appointee. Right. Come on, it's like we should know who and what we're dealing with here. Larry, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Your numbers are always great, and I really appreciate your calling in. Bill in Clifton, New Jersey. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Hey, could I first tell you an interesting factoid about Stalin?
Sure.
If I may. Yeah, he had a big inferiority complex because he was deformed when he was born. He had webbed toes, and he had one arm that was a lot shorter than the other.
Really? I didn't know any of that.
Oh, yeah. Plus, he was very embarrassed that he had a thick Georgian accent, which wasn't good in Russia.
Right.
And he hated his firstborn son, Yakov, because he married a Jewish woman, was his first wife. And he sent him off to the front with the Battle of Stalingrad, and he got caught by the Germans. At the same time, Stalin had captured Field Marshal Paulus, the German, head officer. And the Germans wanted Paulus back, and Paulus said, "Why should I be the captive of a corporal when I can be the captive of a general?" Corporal meaning Hitler. And then they offered to trade Stalin's son for Paulus, and Stalin said, "Why would I want a lieutenant when I've got a field marshal?" So his son ended up dying in a German concentration camp.
Wow.
But
I had no idea. Anyway, thank you.
Oh yeah. Anyway, why don't we have a memorial for the 1 billion Americans who died from the COVID virus? 1 million people died, and I don't understand why it just sort of disappeared. I think I had calculated with you the last time that it was the footprint of the Vietnam War Memorial, which is 500 feet long. It would be 14 stories tall.
Mm-hmm.
And
because that's only 53,000 people. Only,
right.
you know what I mean.
Right. So, and it should have both presidents' name on it, Trump and because Biden, because both of them were involved in it. And I think it would be good because people should know that Trump actually backed the vaccine and that he was a part of that whole thing.
Although Trump also, pushed policies starting on April 8th, 2020, that caused America to have the worst COVID death rate in the developed world, and that led to an unnecessary 500,000 deaths. And I suspect that's why you will get no Republican will want to talk about a COVID memorial. But I think you're right. I agree with you, Bill, and I think it would be a good idea. Thank you for calling and making the suggestion. Rich in Indianapolis. Hey, Rich, you wanted to talk about UFOs?
Yeah, the UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
I have always been interested, as from the time I was a little kid, right on through. It's like the sci-fi was fun to watch, and as I came to learn about the size of things and how very distant everything is, my ability to support the idea of vast distances being traversable has dwindled, fizzled. And now I'm back in the, wow, UFOs are cool. And the idea that this intelligence official from the Pentagon, David Grush, is willing to stand up and ask for whistleblower protection.
But he has not offered any evidence at all, Rich. I mean, that's the problem. He in fact, he doesn't. He has said when he testified, he said he didn't have any evidence, that he had heard things and seen things, but he didn't have any evidence to offer. I mean, I would love to. On the one hand, I think it would be really cool, flying saucers and aliens, and God hope, let's hope that they are benevolent. But have a conversation with the natives of Haiti, circa 1492, about what happens when a foreigner shows up with an advanced technology.
Yeah, we're meek. There was a wonderful piece of comedy done by a couple of voice artists. I got to hear Maeve I can't remember Maeve's name. She's on a quiz show, and then the guy that is Bob of Bob's Burgers, and also Archer, Benjamin something. But they're back and forth talking as entities, giant entities of vast proportion, and they describe Earth as, they're meat. Well, how do they communicate? Well, they sort of belch and burp at each other with their meat, and there was this back and forth.
I get it.
About us.
I get it. I think I've heard that. Rich, thank you. Thank you for bringing UFOs into Anything Goes Friday. It's the appropriate place. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archive.
We'll be right back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Taking back the mainstream media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, right here. And welcome back. Jeff in Portland, Oregon. Hey, Jeff, thanks for listening to X-Ray FM. What's up?
Happy Friday, Tom. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it at Powell's. I had work obligations on Monday, but, I'm still going to go down there and buy your new book. So I hope it was a good turnout on Monday.
It was.
Great. And, Tom, you began the week by calling on President Biden to declare a climate emergency and urging listeners to reach out to their members of Congress with that message. And, if this summer of extreme heat isn't making that a no-brainer for the White House to do so, the millions of youth voters led by the Sunrise Movement and Gen Z for Change who are also echoing your call for him to declare a climate emergency, that should be something at the forefront of the re-election agenda as well. So,
I'm with you.
And you had a caller yesterday, Tom, asking why there hasn't been a linking of climate change action with the need for affordable housing. And as I recall, there has been, because AOC and Ed Markey's Green New Deal includes major funding for energy-efficient housing, and President Biden's own Build Back Better also had a lot of money for housing. Unfortunately, I think the IRA, which was a downsized BBB, took out most of that money for energy efficient housing. So we got to keep fighting for that. But AOC also has introduced a clean energy bill because the IRA, as you know, it's done a lot to spur clean energy development. But the downside's been that Joe Manchin inserted some poison pills in it, requiring oil and gas lease sales be held anytime a permit for wind and solar power is granted. So, I think besides demanding the president declare a climate emergency, I think we should also be calling on our members of Congress to support AOC's clean energy bill that'll repeal those fossil fuel giveaways to the IRA.
Has her bill even made it out of committee? I mean, that's the House of Representatives. I can't imagine it's going to go anywhere.
I don't know where it's at. I mean, Common Dreams had a post by Julia Conley talking about it this week, and I don't remember what she said about what stage of development it's at. But I mean, I'm just saying, he has, unfortunately, President Biden has granted more permits than Trump did at this point in his presidency. So I mean, we really can't just be doing one side here, one for you, one for them, and continue down that road. I mean, the earth is screaming out for action, and as I say, it's not only in the best interest of the planet, but it's really, President Biden is not going to win if he's running on Joe Manchin's climate agenda.
Yeah,
I mean, that
I agree.
So, I mean, there's no upside to holding to that. I mean, he was trying to pacify him, I think, for him not to run as the no labels candidate. But forget about that.
Yeah, I think he was trying to prevent him from blowing stuff up in the Senate. But whatever. Joe Manchin's ego knows no bounds. Jeff, thank you for the call. Spot on. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So when a political party embraces violence as a political tool, what is the end game? Where does this lead? How does this work out? How does this end? We've seen this in other countries historically. In fact, we tend to refer to them as fascist countries. We saw it in Germany and Spain and Italy in the 30s. We saw it in the 60s in Chile with Pinochet. It appears to be happening now here in America as well. We have Republican politicians calling for violence, calling for civil war, preaching violence and not to mention the former president, Donald Trump, basically begging for violence to defend him. And how does this work out? It tends not to work out well. And there's a whole piece laying out all the details of this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, "What is the End Game for a Party of Violence?" Check it out. 52 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Lawrence in Berkeley. Hey, Lawrence, what's up?
Yeah. Hi, Tom. For the first time, I have to seriously disagree with you.
Okay.
Okay.
You're entitled.
Talking about slavery in Africa is not the equivalent of talking about black-on-black crime. And this is the reason. It
depends on who's saying it and the context in which they're saying it and the purpose of their saying it.
Yeah, I understand. But the reason that I say this really strongly is because all of the countries in Africa, or most of them, as well as those in southern Asia to a lesser degree, depend on Western investment. And the United States mostly controls that. Not only our own American investment, but the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, since we're the greatest contributors, we more or less have veto power over them. And we could say to the countries in Africa, unless you abolish slavery, you will not get any more foreign aid and much less investment. And this is something which progressives should really talk about, is the fact that we can stop slavery in Africa, or most of it, and we're not doing it.
I don't think we can. I have worked in Africa. In fact, I worked in South Sudan, where we were literally rescuing people from slavery. You know, slaves who had been Sudanese raiders had come down. We were right on the border of Darfur, and they'd come down into Darfur, and they'd come into northern South Sudan. And these were brown-skinned Arabs who were stealing black-skinned Dinkas, the Dinka tribe, and taking them up into Sudan and holding them in slavery until they were sick or until they were old. And then in some cases, you know, these slaves would come back, you know, these enslaved people. And I was there. And I can tell you, these are not, number one, most of these countries do not have anything close to the infrastructure the United States has to do anything to stop slavery. Number two, frankly, I think that the slavery in Sudan was sanctioned by the Assad government, or the Bashir government at the time. I can't speak to right now because it's been 7 years since I was there. But you know, these are things that are being run in places where where I was in South Sudan, we were 300 miles from the nearest paved road. There was no electricity.
Yeah.
You know, how do you have a government enforce laws against slavery under those conditions?
Okay, in Sudan, which, you know, has always been in one kind or another of civil war, it's something of an anomaly. But a country like Nigeria, which does have a real government, we could say
large parts of Nigeria are just wild and out of control. They are not actually controlled by the government. I mean, this is one of the problems. This is why Boko Haram is running all across, Central Africa right now, because these governments are hanging on by the skin of their teeth, many of them. They've got, electrical infrastructure that goes back to the 1950s, to the colonial era. They've got a crisis with their healthcare systems. You've got, horrible diseases racking the region. And yes, slavery is a terrible thing. But you can't just say, oh, yeah, we're going to cut off your funding, and they're going to say, OK, that's it, no more slavery. It's not going to work that way. Just like if you were to say, OK, we're going to solve the problem of, hatred in the United States or something like that. These are deep, entrenched, long-term problems that frankly have been part of humanity's experience for as long as we've been around.
Can I tell you a joke about that?
Well, we got 20 seconds, sure.
Okay. Science has discovered the identity of the missing link. You know who it is?
No.
It's us.
Oh, okay. All right. Lawrence, thank you very much for the call. In fact, this thing right here is from when we were in Sudan. Anyway. Thanks so much to Louise Hartman, Sean Taylor, Nate Atwell, Jamie Holly, Joyce the Hammer Nance, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick Hoyt, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jay LeBlanc, Al Gorilla Rhythm, Connor Arroyo, and Carne Verde, all the folks who work to make this program work. Thank you to you for reaching out to your local radio or television station and letting them know that you're watching or listening and supporting our sponsors or our station, our nonprofit stations. Thanks so much. Get out there, get active, tag you're it. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you on Monday.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
Hey, it's $5 Friday, or $15 Friday, or $50 Friday, or $500 Friday. But no. I'm getting out over my skis here. This is the day, and we occasionally do this here, on Free Speech TV. This is the day when we ask you to consider becoming a regular sustaining member of Free Speech TV. In the normal pledge drives, it's like, hey, please call now, and if you give $100, you can get my new book and stuff like that. This is a different thing. Free Speech TV is, a great network, and imagine trying to run a business and not knowing how much money is going to come in, having unpredictable revenue. It's a challenge. And so what we're trying to do is get as many people as possible, to sign up and say, yes, please, charge my credit card $5 a month or $15 a month or $50 a month, whatever you can afford, whatever's comfortable and convenient for you. And out of that, Free Speech TV now builds a base, a predictable base of support. As a Free Speech TV sustaining member, you'll also get some added perks, like a year-end gift, special invites to events throughout the year, and more. Just this week, Free Speech TV hosted a special event for monthly donors with the filmmaker and producer of Free Speech TV's newest documentary, Powerlands. They had a wonderful time, and hopefully you can join next time. It's a marvelous thing. By the way, free speech has, I mentioned when we're doing the pledge drives, the large gifts that you get premiums for, right? The $20 gifts, the $50 gifts, the $100 gifts. And Free Speech TV has basically a room full of old gifts. And not old in a bad way. I mean, some of them are just really special things. A lot of them are, books and caps and mugs and just we've had some really fascinating premiums, I think is what they're called, over the years. And so if you sign up today for $5 Friday here, for $5 or whatever amount you would like to give on a monthly basis. If you sign up to become a member of the sustaining donor community, somebody from Free Speech TV is going to go into that back room with a box, and they're going to find something and stick it in that box, and you're going to get a surprise in the mail. And I have no idea what it will be, and neither will you until you open the box. But it's 27 years of Free Speech TV. There's a lot of good stuff in there, old shows, just all kinds of cool stuff. And by the way, if you're already a sustaining donor, first off, thank you very much for that. But if you would like today's mystery box, if you increase your sustaining donation by $5 or more today, then you'll also get a special mystery gift. So, here's your opportunity. Free Speech TV is just such a special place. I've got to tell you, it is such an honor to be on this network. I remember when John Schwartz, who used to be on the board of Free Speech TV, maybe still is. I don't think he is. Came to visit me here in Portland back more than 15 years ago, maybe 16 years ago. And I was doing the show, and we were talking about something unrelated. He had a foundation that he wanted me to be on the board of, which I am now on the board of. He said, "Have you ever thought of putting a camera in the studio?" And at that time, Free Speech TV was mostly running documentaries. The only live show that they had was Democracy Now! And I was like, yeah, that would be interesting. And so we got one of these little webcams.